Watch A Christmas Story if you haven't seen it, and it's just the beaming face of that kid once he gets the rifle. What is it? I fucking wrote it down and now it's gone. The Red Ryder, right? He wanted that Red Ryder rifle and he got that thing and that was his whole fucking life. He was on his way to being a fucking man. Is he a man? Look at that fucking child up on the goddamn stand. Tell me he's a man. Really? I mean, seriously. I mean, that's really what the real problem here is. It has nothing to do with systemic racism. It has nothing to do with judicial bias and all the rest of this fucking noise. It has nothing to do with that. It's a child who is now traumatized by what he has done, and he did do it. I mean, he did shoot those people, right? But he's traumatized for this, and he'll be traumatized for life, and chased by political partisan fucking ghouls for the rest of his goddamn days.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Hippy recruitment. First, let's start with a quick round of intro where, tell people where they can find you, who you are, and everything. And let's start with Josie. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to be here with all of you. It's going to be a great time. I am Josie Rose C. You can find me on Twitch under the same name. I am a cozy political streamer. I have a background of 6 years in the United States Navy as a reactor operator, as well as 10 years in political experience working on campaigns in my own consulting firm. And now I'm a professional researcher and actually deal with trans rights. So, and I do stream for fun. So this is a good time. So I'm really, really excited to see what all of you have. Don't worry, I do get spicy. Don't take it personal, but I will.
Happy to have you on board. Endless Cemetery. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing good.
Glad to hear it. I'm Endless Cemetery from Baltimore. I'm a freight handler, drug war veteran, just general proletariat. You can find me at endlesscemetery.com where I multi-stream to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. I'm also a co-host of the Bolsheviks podcast, where you can find that on wherever you listen to your podcasts. And land back, trans lives matter, black lives matter, abolish the police, all those fun memes. Yeah.
All right. Bill Bash Johnson, how are you doing? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sweet. Must not have been picking up my keystroke. I put myself on push to talk. But yeah, how you doing today, Geek?
Doing good.
Everybody else? Awesome. So, for those of you who haven't met me, I've met, which I think is everybody here except Geek and Monty, actually. So yeah, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Beer Bash Johnson. I'm a leftist streamer of many things. I talk about politics. I play the racing sim. I play the Escape from Tarkov. I do other random things. And then by day, I'm a pizza delivery guy. And being a pizza delivery guy is being a pizza delivery guy and like working in, and then also I also did Uber driving, working in like pizza delivery driving, and Uber driving has really helped like shape my political views in a large way, seeing how there's like a whole sector of workers that get treated like absolute shit while literally feeding people. So yeah, then I'm also really into linguistics. I haven't done any good linguistics segments on the show in a while, and I need to, because I'm really into human languages and and how that's like such a fundamental part of human culture and the human condition. Anyways, enough about me. Let's move on. Let's move on to one of the others.
All right. Today I was supposed to be like on the show, not as like the host, but as a guest. But I'm happily leaving my place to someone who's coming back to this sphere. Dario, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Hey, Geek. Thanks so much for accommodating me. I'm Dario. I don't really stream anymore. I don't really make much content, but I'm trying to talk to some people again, practicing a bit talking English as well, since I just moved to New York, and I'm going to be here for a year. So thought might as well try and get a bit more into panels and stuff, since it's actually in my time zone. I don't have to mess up my sleep schedule completely to attend. Yeah, hope it's going to be interesting today. I'm looking forward to the fun topics, especially, and we'll see where it goes.
Hell yeah. Dissident Tower, thank you for joining us. How are you doing? We can't hear you. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we're doing Discord for audio. Sorry,
Yep.
I always use push to talk. I don't want my whole house to echo through the audio. Well, I'm Dissident Tower. You can find me at Tower16 on Twitch, Dissident Tower on Twitter. I'm just a really boring nerd who really likes books and politics. I'm an overeducated healthcare professional. I lean a little bit right leaning and have some right leaning views that sometimes piss people off. But I'm glad to be here. So it's really good to be back.
Hell yeah, happy to have you on board. And today we have a newcomer, Cam Higby. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. I'm impressed my mic's working. I'm just getting into streaming, so I'm still new to all this. I'm learning the, I guess, customs of Twitch and how to actually get all my tech working properly when I'm streaming. So yeah, I make political content primarily on TikTok. So I'm branching out to Twitch. I also use Instagram. I guess if you want to find me, you just search my name and it'll come up. It's a pretty uncommon name. So yeah, I guess that's I live in New York. I write political articles. So yeah.
Hell yeah, happy to have you with us. CTV,
What's going on, buddy?
where were you? We were worried sick.
You should be. You should be. It was the wife that needed my attention, and you never know what's going to end up happening whenever she's calling. So, thank God I made it back. All right, that's all I can say.
I can understand why you're asking why are women. You know?
Why are women?
Why are women?
Just why? Why?
But yeah, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. She just got back from picking up the 2019 Ford Mustang EcoBoost Premium convertible. So this is going to be fun. Future content's going to be CTV riding through the mountains of North Carolina and showing people what that motherfucking car will do.
Damn.
God
I know,
damn.
this- So lots of fun. Maybe live stream is going to depend on how the mobile internet connection is as far as Verizon is concerned, but it's definitely going to be some recorded content and be put on YouTube. I figure that is the direction for CTV's YouTube, is some motherfucking riding through the mountains in a fucking Mustang and putting a face cam on Wolficorn and her sitting in the passenger seat. That is totally going to be worth it.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to have you on board and happy that you're feeling better. Like, I know you got COVID last week. Happy that, like, you know, it's over and everything.
Yeah, that shit sucks, man. That's why I got so fucking drunk that night, was I couldn't taste the moonshine. And, yeah.
Damn.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I could feel
Yeah,
the
that sounds
burn, and
dangerous.
frankly, like, the burn felt good. You know what I mean? But I couldn't taste it, so there wasn't the whole link up there. And the next thing you know, I'm passing out on the floor. So there you go.
Maybe that's a cheat code for getting hammered. Just get COVID and then there you go.
Something.
You can't taste it, yeah.
Huh?
That's dangerous.
All right.
And-
Let's go over the rules real quick. And after that, we'll jump right into the show because we're kind of late. So, the rules. You're all familiar with the Hippy, so we're respecting kind of the same rule. So when I speak, it's going to be to moderate, not to chime in. So when I speak, no one speak. Nothing TOS, obviously. Please respect everyone's identity, everyone's pronouns. Beside that, you know, like make sure to be like, you know, like being nice is not an obligation, but try to be just as a general rule. You know, as a human being. Yeah, so for the format of the show, we're going to have like 3 topics, one fun, one serious, one fun. opening statement and closing statement. Like so, opening statement period where you can engage. Closing statement. During opening and closing, you cannot interrupt other people. If you have something to say, keep it in mind for the period where you'll be able to engage with other people. If you cannot chime in, if you see that like people are engaging from all sides and you want to say something, raise your hand. I will give you a little thumbs up, and yeah, I will try to give you the mic as soon as possible. With that being said, yeah, let's all have a good show, and let's start right now by the first fun topic, which is. Give me a sec. All right, this one is a weird one. If you could switch places with any other political streamer for a day, who would it be and why?
I got something to say before we get started on that.
All right, CTV, go ahead. Can you do it and do your opening statement at the same time? All right, let's go. It's yours.
All right. So, great topic, actually. That'll be something to think about. So, while I'm sitting here going on this little monologue, y'all got a chance to actually think about it, right? So, I am critically thinking veteran, right? Most everybody knows who I am, what I'm about, and what I'm about here on Sunday, right? Is giving everybody the opportunity to understand that, one, this is the Hippy Dippy Recruitment Show. So, you get a direct line for Dylan Burns to be able to take a look at your content, the type of personality that you might be able to bring to the show, et cetera, right? You can be the same person that you are all the time, or you can choose to be, maybe, maybe kind of develop a character for yourself, right? Because the whole idea for Hippy Dippy branding is Dylan likes the, wrestling world, and there's a certain amount of shit talking that goes on in the wrestling world, and these are things that people find entertaining to watch. I'm sure you do yourself, considering you're sitting here in this room. So, as we go through these topics tonight, keep memes and having fun and having a good time at the forefront of your mind. If you feel yourself getting a little bit toxic, understand that the reason why you're feeling that way has everything to do with you. Try to stay in the room and be funny, because that's what's going to ultimately end up driving up viewership. This is why we get thousands of people looking on Friday nights, and we do our thing getting people comfortable with the environment here on Sunday. So with all that said, I'm looking forward to this topic. My goal here is to try to remain as quiet as I can and to keep the conversation moving in a general direction. I see we got Montreal in here tonight, so he's, I know, going to be bringing it hard, and I see we got Josie, so definitely should be able to keep the energy up and meet me tonight. So with that said, Geek, take it away.
All right, I'm going to throw it for this first topic to Josie.
Had to start with me. So the question is, if I could switch places with a streamer, does that mean I just get their platform? Is that what it is, or is it like?
The question is,
are you asking?
Wait. Yeah. The question is, if you could switch places with any other political streamer for a day, who would it be and why?
Okay, I guess I would probably. Like I guess I would say, because like streamers. So like if I had like a streamer's like impact and like had their fanship, I guess it would be that. I guess I would choose probably Vosh because I like that audience, I guess. I think being able to like talk to that audience and speak candidly and try to like slide it over a little bit more to like the the BIPOC type of thought process would help a lot. I think there's a lot of issues in that space, and I would like to like throw those ideas into that space and see how they would percolate. But yeah, I think that would be interesting. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Dario.
So it's actually not that easy to answer the question, because at first I was like, which political streamer do I think would I most like to have like their audience or something that they have or something? And at first I was like, okay, there's like the easy answers of like Destiny or Vosh or whatever. But then I thought, if it's just for a day, how do I spend one day? And I'm like, you know what? I'd like to have Hassan's audience for just one day. And maybe I can spend all of the fucking money he earns in one day to actually do the good things that he ought to do with his money instead of fucking wasting it on houses and all that kind of luxury shit. That's what I would say. The most bang for your buck for one day. Why not go for the biggest one?
True. All right. Endless Cemetery.
My first thought's probably honestly, Hassan. I'd probably say Hassan, just because his audience seems really cool. It's so large. Obviously, all the money he makes would be a perk. But just his political experience, and I feel like his life experience, having that would be really cool. I'm always jealous of people who can speak more than one language. Dylan's also a close second, for the same reason. His political experience and some of his life experience, I feel like would be valuable. I feel like we have congruent life experience, but not like identical life experience. And we're both Marylanders, so. And then Destiny behind that, just because humiliating white supremacists in public is one of my favorite pastimes. But also, I'll throw Shark 3-0 in there. Shark seems pretty cool, but yeah.
All right. Beer Bash.
Can you just go?
Push to talk. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
What? Why the fuck is it being? All right. So I very much agree with Josie's take that it would be awesome to like have like Vosh's whole audience for one day and be able to like engage at that level with them. That would be cool. However, I would probably pick Hassan to switch switch places with, and it would, for a very similar reason, although a much more shallow, like petty one. I would switch places with Hassan so that for that one day I could have infinite, like, Hassan's massive amount of money and not even do a regular stream, but take like an IRL streaming rig to go rent some absurdly fancy car and drive around a fucking racetrack with it like a jackass, and just for the purpose of my own enjoyment. That's the sole reason why I would like pick if I had to like pick one. I would pick switching places with Hassan.
All right. CTV. You're muted.
Can't hear you.
We got a
Okay,
bunch
okay,
of
okay,
first
right there.
streamers tonight.
Hit the damn button and it didn't click it. Oh well. If I could switch places with one political streamer for a day, it's obvious to me that I'd want to switch places with Wolficorn, right? I mean, to be in the excellence, to be in so close to excellence, right? To be next to CTV would just be like the experience of a lifetime. And it's Wolficorn for anybody that didn't understand. Wolficorn, will you say hi, honey? Leaning over here and waving the camera. So this is Wolficorn, right? So I'd want to trade places with Wolficorn because, I mean, it's obvious, right? So anyway, that's my take.
Best answer so far. Dissident Tower.
Well, I'm looking at the I'm looking at the Twitch directory right now, and I'm seeing Hassan at 23.7K. I guess that would be the biggest. That would be my choice for that very reason. That'd be like the biggest fucking classroom in the world to have for like a whole day. I mean, imagine that. Just having that much audience to just share whatever the fuck kind of bullshit that you're into for the day or whatever. That would be dope as fuck.
True.
It's too bad he sucks so bad.
Cam Higby.
I guess this is kind of a hard question for me because I'm not really like familiar with a lot of Twitch streamers. The first person that comes to my head is like Vosh and Destiny because they're like the only political Twitch streamers that I know. But because I'm right wing, if I had their audience for the day, I'd probably get slaughtered for the day. So I don't know. I know like Lecture Fan is kind of smaller, has a decent sized audience, but I don't I don't watch his stream all that
Does
often.
this guy not know who CTV is? That's amazing.
Amazing.
Wait,
but-
who's CTV?
Wait. I want to hear Cam, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess goof around on Vosh's audience for a day. I don't know.
Wow. Conservative and you pick a lefty.
I mean,
Wow.
I don't
That could
know
be
any
fun.
right-wing Twitch streamers.
but yeah. Montreal player.
This is gonna be fun.
I guess if I had to switch with any other political streamer, honestly, okay, touring news. All right, why? All right, he did that trip across the country where he learned, networked with a bunch of food producers, learning firsthand how they produce food on small and large scales, taking a trip, learning things constantly. What an adventure. Okay, what an adventure. I followed it the entire time, and myself used to love taking trips like this. Since having a family, I have 4 kids now. This is not something that I do often, and that's it. That kind of adventure I would have loved to have taken on, and that's why if I could switch places for a day, it'd be with Touring News, because that trip that he made this summer was incredible, honestly, and you should check it out and check out his YouTube and stuff. Also, I'm really surprised at how many of you leftists want to switch with somebody for the money, fame, and influence. It's a little fucked up, honestly. All right, that's it. All right, have a good one.
All right.
Also, thanks for skipping my intro earlier. That was great. All right.
Did I skip your intro?
100%.
I am so sorry about that.
No,
Listen,
don't worry about it. It happens all the time.
Montreal player.
Very forgettable.
But yeah, give your intro now. Sorry about
hello,
that.
Montreal player. My name is Monty. I smoke joints in the evening. I have a very busy life, and I need to fucking unwind on school nights. So this week, you can find me 9-ish, 10-ish, smoking a joint basically every night, and hopefully talking to interesting people. Politically, I guess I'm a localist, and that's it. Let's have fun tonight.
Listen, it's this old rivalry between France and Quebec. That's all I have to say. But anyway.
I knew it, you bigot. No.
All right. So yeah, if you could switch with a political streamer, basically, why would it be and why? The floor is yours. You can engage.
I don't understand, Montreal, why you would say touring, because you can't take that trip in one day, right? So I mean, it's not like you would get anything from switching with touring for a day. I mean, it's not like he has that big of an audience. I mean, I love the guy in his chat all the time as well, but it's like, what would you get out of it? Of course you'd take where you can get the most money. It's just a day, dude.
No, I make a significant amount of money on my own. I do this for fun. I don't need the money.
Yeah, but nobody else. Sorry.
No, but I
Leftism
mean,
is
I
when
would do
no
it-
money.
I would do it for the experience, honestly. For the experience, honestly, one day in one of the towns where. Yeah, one day in one of the towns, learning about different things, learning about different, I guess, production methods, working in them. I'm sure even a day would be very educational. You're right, a day wouldn't be enough, but still, I would rather look. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of political streamers, this is the experience that I would seek more than the money or influence or whatever, which frankly is not all that attractive to me. Personally, that's just my personal preference.
And I just say Hassan makes
me
more,
that with you. You know what
Hassan
I mean?
makes more money in a day than like most people probably make in like a year. I don't know.
Yeah, but nobody said you got to take anything with you after that 24 hours.
Why not?
Well, why would you? Why would you think that just because you did something during this time with somebody else's shit that you somehow be able to take it afterwards, right?
I guess
that doesn't make any
some
sense.
Prep work. I mean, I'd have to like take over the bank accounts in that one day. I would assume everything is logged on, right? So if I have his body, would I have his information? Like would I have like, I don't know, would I know his passwords and stuff?
I don't know. When they asked the question to me, it seemed to speak more about like, say, what your level of knowledge was of what their daily activities are, and what you think that a day in the life of would probably be like as far as a learning benefits to your own life, so you'd be able to take that experience with you. I mean,
if it's about learning something, then Hassan would probably be the worst choice. But I don't know. Maybe I need to rethink it at that point.
And that's a CTV win. Okay. Who's next?
Okay, I wanted to say one thing. It's like I felt like there was assumption thrown. Montreal, what do you mean by leftists want the power and the clout? I didn't understand that point because that's not what I was thinking at all. I do this for I don't do this for a living either. I have a day job too. I do this for a hobby. Was that a value judgment? I'm just confused.
It seems like everyone mentioned the money, or the influence they would have, or the the sheer size of the audience, right? So
I want to talking.
Those are what were mentioned.
I know, but what I said was I just want to talk to a larger audience for a day. I would like to talk to his community was my specific words. I didn't say
influence.
No, it's not influence. It's just communicating with a different audience.
What's wrong with influence?
How is that influence?
Wait, what's wrong with influence?
This is a political debate.
Wait, if you just want to talk to yourself, you can
there's nothing wrong with it.
To your friends. Like, why are you
honestly,
on the show?
It's weird. It's weird that everyone's fucking feeling all attacked by this. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it.
No,
it's funny that's what came out.
Let him get out.
No. I'm just asking you a question. I was just asking you a question, which was just, why did you say it like you say it's rich that all these lefties on the panel would be talking about influence and money as though it was a value judgment, as though we were hypocritical or something?
Because leftism is when
is
no
that
money.
what I implied? Is that what it implied?
It's how it felt. I just
thought it was funny.
I'm asking for
I just thought it was funny that was kind of consistent to.
But what's the joke of it? That's what I'm trying to say. Let me in on the joke. I don't.
The joke is when you're a leftist, you have less viewers. So the more viewers you have, the less of a leftist you are. That's the joke.
Okay. Okay. Is that it?
Leftism is when no viewers.
I guess that joke just went right over my head because I was just asking for clarification on it.
I don't know. It's just out of all the reasons there could be to like switch places with somebody, it seemed pretty consistent as far as money and influence and stuff. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, influence is important, right? So if you have, if you have political ideas, presumably you would like to spread those political ideas to somebody else, right? You would like to talk to them about those political ideas. So why wouldn't you choose the biggest audience you can get on? I mean, that's why most people go on panels, right?
Especially when your politics,
to a greater audience and talk to people.
Especially when your politics are based on the strength of the collective.
Wait, does any of y'all think that the reason why I do what I do has a damn thing to do with influence?
I know, right? It's the same with me.
So. Wait, CTV, obviously, I mean, you want some kind of influence, right? Or at least, if not over random people, then over like your friends and peers, right? You want them just to influence them into thinking that at least you have something like important to say to some degree, right?
No.
I like meeting interesting people. That's why I like coming onto Twitch.
Every time I turn the stream on, right, and people keep showing up in the chat, right, I'm amazed every single day and appreciative of the fact that anybody bothers wanting to fucking talk to me, right? And everybody that's in my community understands that, like, some of the different places where I participate, that sometimes there's a very specific reason as to why. You know, like the reason why I help out with Hippy Dippy is because I like Dylan. You know, I think he's a good guy. He was when I first came to the scene, he was the only moderator that I felt like called it as close down the middle as it could be, and his moderation's only gotten better over this past year with me and him working together. So that's what makes him different from, say, like Prime or somebody else, just to make sure that his ass gets called out because he's a shitty fucking moderator, right?
Okay. So when you're on these panels,
gaining influence.
Yeah. So when you're on these panels, do you not want people to come to your point of view?
No, I'm not trying to change anybody's fucking mind. All I'm ever doing
I was gonna say,
I
think CTV is just memeing most of the time.
Well, you say it's part meme and entertainment, but it's also like I'm not trying to go on a panel to try to change somebody's mind, because nobody on the panel is going to actually change their mind. Not once has that ever fucking happened, I don't think.
Right? I mean the people on the panel.
Well, I think the reason why is because actually making good arguments and trying to change people's minds sort of has the opposite effect. I feel like the best way to get people on your side is to do what you're doing, is to be funny, is to meme, is to do these things. So inadvertently, you're gaining influence, even if that's not...
You still have a point of view. You get
Well,
more
sorry, that's-
viewers and all this
If
stuff.
influence is a side effect of what you're doing, I mean,
So-
I guess that's fine, but I mean, it doesn't have to be your driver here.
But the
I
thing
want
is-
to attract interesting people and have diverse conversations with diverse perspectives. That's literally why I'm on this site.
And that's why I asked the question. Is the fact that every single Twitch streamer, regardless of where they sit on a political spectrum, are all doing this for different reasons. Some people are doing it for influence, and I don't know what the end goal of like Twitch influence. What is ultimate Twitch influence? Like Hassan being able to meme on people.
I don't care
that
about
to me
Twitch.
is that's not real influence to me. Real influence to me is getting into the political process, winning elected office, and actually doing things in the real professional world. Twitch is what I do for Twitch, and what I build communities and safe spaces for people who are queer and trans can come into this space and be safe and cozy and don't have to deal with a lot of things on the outside. Like this is my hobby. So the idea of just like that we're only doing this for influence or anything like that, it's like only 5% of streamers make over $1,000 a year on the platform. I was
gonna say, if I
that's
could-
what I mean.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead. No,
Well,
I'm
listen.
done with my point.
I was going to say, if I could interject in defense of Hassan, I am of the belief that building dual power is as effective, if not more effective, than electoralism. And a great way to do that is through influence. You influence people to get involved in their communities, whether it's mutual aid or just like giving people rides where they need rides back and forth to work or whatever. If you actually get directly involved in your community and meet the needs of the members of your community, that's considerably more valuable to me than to submit yourself to the teeth extracting processes of the Democratic Party. But that's just
Well,
me.
I would say that's the reason why I would want Hassan's audience. It's because I believe I could do that better than he would, right now at least.
Likewise.
Okay, you know what? Can I give a second
Well,
answer?
I'll say, sorry, just really quick. I don't think I could do it better than Hassan because I don't think that's fair. I'll say that I have a maybe a little bit different angle being African American, but go ahead. Sorry.
Can I give a different answer? You know who else I might want to trade spots with, and not unironically, Dario. You know why? Because I like the fact that he is part of a co-op of software developers. I like what's going on in Denmark, like towns like what's it called, Christiania or something. This kind of like
the anarchist is that
whatever Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever it is, people coming together, and forming community and trying to find their own kind of bubble with which to I guess create that community. I mean, I'm trying to describe it in a nutshell. That's not quite it. But anyways, projects like that are things that I guess I'm very interested in for a variety of reasons. And I would just trade places with you just to have access to visit. Honestly.
Sure. I mean, listen. If that's the reason why you would trade places with me, I mean, just talk to me. You just come visit. I mean, we're open for people coming and visiting and seeing what we're doing and stuff like that. I mean, don't have to trade places. Again, I think trading places for one day is kind of futile in most cases. I think the information that I have about these things and what I've experienced and what I've lived is something you can gain from just like talking to most people. But the issue is that people like Hassan, even to some degree, Vosh and Destiny, you can't really talk to them, right? In the same way that we can talk to each other here because they're on a different level, right? So.
Right, but I mean, look. I mean, I honestly like as far as Hassan goes. Okay, I'm seeking like something that I'm seeking. Honestly, is knowledge of how to do things. I have certain projects. I also have cooperative here, right? Food producers, right? It's a small operation, but whatever. But these are the kind of things I like to undertake in my spare time, right? And talking with people to get, I guess, insights about how to develop ideas like that more is what I'm here for on Twitch. Is the diversity of people that I can talk to with their experiences and their ideas. And as far as like talking to someone like Hassan, like, okay, I guess it'll be nice to hang out in his pool or something like that, but it's not stuff that I want to take with me, you know? Cool. And yeah, I'm sure it is, but also I have
it's a really nice
friends.
pool.
I have obscenely wealthy friends that I could visit for their obscenely nice pool as well. So really, as far as I'm concerned. It's really about experiences and learning things for me.
I would say from your angle specifically, and I understand people who feel this way. I kind of feel that way as well. Like I'm not really in it to get money and stuff. What I would say from like your perspective is that if you have an access to a huge audience like what Hassan would have, you would have an easier time finding more people who are interested in the things that you're interested in, right? Just by broadcasting your voice to like 20, 30,000 people listening to you, it's easier for you to find like-minded people. I think
don't you think the people you would find though you'd have to filter out a lot of people for fucking superficial crouch chasing. Think about the quality of relationships. Oh no, that's not true. You'd have to have a good filter. But as far as I guess the conditions I'm in, with I can gravitate towards, I guess, people that I select, right? Because I find that they share values, they have things that I want to learn about, right? And I don't have to do that kind of filtering. Do you see how it would be a nuisance for that kind of goal at that point?
Well, I definitely see that. I guess I see it more as, if you have a very large audience, you have the opportunity to do both things, right? You can just talk to no people or talk to everybody, right? Or like try and filter people. If you don't have a large audience, you don't really have a choice, right? You have to do the grind. You have to hope that you're hitting some kind of like random fish in a barrel kind of thing, or you're hitting like some interesting people, even though you're streaming to like 10, 20 people or whatever. And I think that's harder than... You could even pay people to filter people for you, right? If you have this kind of money, you don't have to do it.
They'd be filtering for their own reasons, right? Anyways, there's just a few things that, don't get me wrong, clearly having money for sitting on your ass and making memes about people, okay, it seems to solve a lot of problems in a convenient way. Don't get me wrong, I'm not shitting on the ease of access that you have to certain resources. I'm just saying that in terms of, I guess personal goals, I could see a lot of nuisance to that situation.
I don't disagree. I can definitely see that as well. I just think that sort of the benefits outweigh the bad things of having a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a left-right issue. It's just anybody on this platform, regardless of their political affiliation, will do it, even if they're not political at all. Look at the Twitch streamers that are making money and aren't talking politics and gaining influence and not doing politics.
True.
So, anyways, that was a good conversation, everybody. Anybody else have anything to say?
With that being said, I think we can jump into the... I like to have this first topic, basically.
Beer Bash wanted to say something.
Yeah.
I think Beer Bash wanted something.
He's muted again.
Oh.
I can hear you say fuck's sake. You're still muted.
I was going to frame the first closing statement, but yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake, I hate my...
Yeah,
it's weird if I have Discord to minimize my push to talk doesn't fucking work for some reason. I think that's what's going on. But, so sorry about that. I apologize. Anyhow, I'll make it quick. So Monty was saying stuff about it's interesting how all these lefties are saying stuff about Hassan's money, but I could totally take Hassan's money to be just do something extremely fucking hedonistic, pay a shitload of money to just go hot lap on some track with some ridiculous racing car with an IRL streaming rig. But I could also do something fucking positive using Hassan's audience, turn that into a fucking charity stream and then donate a bunch of Hassan's money to said charity in addition to whatever the charity stream raised. So I don't feel like wanting to switch place for Hassan for their money is necessarily something to be faulted over. That's all.
No one's faulting. I just thought it was curious. Made an observation.
Okay,
that's what people mentioned.
I was being a bit uncharitable there. I've kind of got the message that we were being a little maligned over it, but yeah, I could. There's a good reason to want access to that much capital if you want to actually try to use it to do something to help people.
So we can agree on one thing, that all of you would definitely spend Hassan's money and resources far better than he ever could, correct?
That damn thing down.
Okay, so I actually take issue with that because I know a guy who, Hassan actually does spend money and resources better than people give him credit for.
I was going to say, I don't
works with, I know a guy who works for an organization in Los Angeles that that organization has been like very helped out by Hassan, like raising money for them and raising awareness about them. And he isn't quite as much of like a lazy do nothing. He only talks the talk as a lot of people act like he is.
Can I also just say that pocket watching is? I was just gonna say also, can I also just say that like pocket watching is kind of mad weird too? Just like kind of policing what other people spend their money on is a little weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's like one thing when they're spending their money on something that's like actually like really when they're putting money into something that's like actually like fucking evil and
that's true,
causes societal damage. But when it's just like people spending their money on like hedonistic but like harmless bullshit, like if I were to have like a stream that netted me like $30,000 and I went and gambled away like a couple thousand of it at a fucking casino or something, like I don't know, that's not something I have any desire to police people for.
Real life senators like Senator Manchin has a freaking yacht for a house, and yet we're not allowed to criticize that. You know what I mean? It's super weird to me.
Yeah, it's weird to me too. Base Josie.
I would like to criticism of spending money stuff. Like I would say if we feel comfortable policing other people's morals, and we should, right? We can tell other people when they're doing things that are immoral. I don't see why talking about how people spend their money is much different, right? So I would definitely say it's all a question of degrees, right? So I wouldn't say to somebody who makes, I don't know, 10K a year, right? Like, how are you spending your money? Are you putting it up in your savings account, stuff like that? Sure, but there's like a degree, right? And I think we should be able to agree that Hassan is definitely above the degree where if we can police his morals and his politics, we should also be able to police like where he spends his money in pursuit of those things.
Dario, though, that brings up I'm sorry, I'm going to say one real good point.
Go for it.
But conservative ideology has been trying to police how poor people use their money for a long time. This goes to food. Why does this person have a refrigerator? How does this person have a cell phone? The policing of people's basic needs has been something that this country's been doing for its existence. So the idea of like policing, yeah, exactly, right? So the fact is, when we talk about criticism about one liberal person, when the entire class of people is being criticized for having a fucking refrigerator, like that's where the big problems are. But
true.
I'm sorry. Real quick. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut this short. So whatever you have to say, keep it for your closing
too
statement.
Interesting.
I know. I'm so sorry, but like we started a little bit late and everything. Unless I'm friend to you first, I swear.
Sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, like let's go. And let's go ahead.
Just really quick. I feel like there's definitely like middle ground. Like there's definitely an area of policing people's money that gets into like welfare queen criticism areas of like grossness, but also like what Dario was saying and kind of getting into what Beer Bash was saying earlier. You can definitely look at what people spend their money on, especially when they have large sums of money, and if they actually contribute to like institutions or programs or whatever that are actually harmful to society or are in direct aversion to what their stated politics are, then that deserves criticism. Of course, since we all have our own unique life experience, we all have our specific things and our specific mutual aid organizations or our charities or what have you that we would specifically spend money on, and I feel like that's what influences our desires in terms of trying to say what Hassan does and what he could do better and those types of criticisms. But yeah,
I would like, from my perspective, right? I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just like to answer Josie, right? So I understand what you're saying, but to that I would just say that just because some people do a bad thing, right? I would say that's a bad thing when conservatives tell people, "Oh, why do you have iPhone? Why do you have a refrigerator?" Right? That's a bad application of what I'm advocating for. But just because they do it in a bad way doesn't mean that we can't do it in a good way, right? And I honestly believe that if we want shit to change where we're living in our situations, we have to do something about it, right? That's why we're here on doing politics. That's why as Montreal player was saying earlier, that's why I have a co-op, right? Where I spend my time and energy instead of working for a bank making 5 times more money than I could doing right, what I'm doing this is because I believe in the things that I talk about. And I just think Hassan should do more because he has more resources to do it, right? If I can do it, then Hassan should be able to do at least a little bit more. And I'm not saying he's not doing anything, right? He's definitely, and specifically like lately, he's been trying to show it more. I just think he could do even more, right? And I think we should just encourage him to do so.
All right. I'm going to fade to Josie.
Yes, absolutely. And I wasn't trying to make the analysis about comparing if the Republicans are doing this, we can't do this. I was trying to make the analysis that there is a lot of criticism that does come from the conservative side. Like Bernie Sanders has this many houses, like, this person has $1 million. Oh, this leftist brought a house, when there is just opulence just being poured on top of all of the most wealthy people in this country, and it's almost like it's distractionary. And I agree with you, Dario. I think that we do need to be able to police it in a good way, because the waste that is being created and the fact that people are putting yachts inside of yachts, yet they pay zero taxes. Like Elon Musk paid like negative $5 in taxes, like paid more taxes than all of us combined. Like it's less taxes. Sorry, less taxes than any of us at all. Any of us here. So yeah, that stuff is pretty interesting. But no, I want to say that this fun topic actually led to really great discussion, Mr. Geek. I really appreciate that, and yeah, I really like it, and I really like everybody's candor right now too. Good heat right now.
I'm going to be honest, I gave shit to Danabo for this topic because, like, I thought that it was going to be, like, well, my choice is this, and, like, basically no one engaging. But, yeah, like, I underestimated people on the panel, and I apologize to Danabo and to you because, yeah, you managed to make a really interesting conversation out of this. So, kudos to all of you for that. I want to fade to Montreal player.
This is our closing statement?
Yes.
Okay, that's right. First of all, this was an interesting topic, and I want to thank myself for making a fucking snarky comment that got this going. So good for me. And then that's it. No, we shouldn't police what anybody is. I don't want to police what anybody is spending on to poor people or Hassan. Honestly, as long as he's not. If he's not in my commune, then I'm not going to police shit. But otherwise, if you are in my commune, well, then you watch your spending, mister. All right, you watch your spending. That's my money too. All right, that's it. That's my only comment.
All right, I'm going to fade to CTV.
Yeah, the first time when the money thing got brought up, I thought they were talking about something different. But when Josie went back and explained, now I can explain why it is that ends up being the case. It has everything to do with the same conversations we were having with Hassan, or about Hassan, right? And him getting to the amount of audience that he has, the amount of money that he's earned, he's buying this fucking $3 million mansion, et cetera, et cetera. You got all this stuff, but like, where is your community activism? Where is the charity, right? Where is that would obviously be the thing that you need to be trying to push for in order to help people? But in reality, all it ends up being is them thinking that, oh, well, the government is the entity that we should have doing this, but then the government passes a thing and then uses or forces everyone under it at the point of a gun, and then the people that don't want to be controlled by the government itself, right, push back against that, and then the people that have been raising this money and push it into government so that they can point a gun at everybody act like they don't understand. But in reality, I think it ends up being a little bit of just, if you don't, prescribe to the type of ideology that we do, then we'll just keep pushing it all into the government. And in that way, we get to control you that way. So I think that if the left is ever going to be trying to make any type of real strides to understand what the conservative viewpoint is, it's got to them first understanding that conservatives don't like guns being pointed at them. And whenever you pass a law, that's exactly what you're doing.
All right. I'm going to fade to Cam Higby.
Yeah, so I pretty much stayed quiet for this one, but I guess kind of as a viewpoint at the end of this conversation, kind of what was going through my head is like what we mean by policing when you guys are saying like policing people's money and stuff, like what type of policing we're talking about. I inferred that you guys are saying policing as in like speaking out about it, right? And that's fine. I have no problem with that. If you want to police with your words how people spend their money and push them to do better things with their money, I don't have any issue with that. I don't think that we should physically police them as in force them or obligate them to spend their money in certain ways. But if you want to advocate for people to spend their money in a good way, then I don't have any problem with that. If you want to push them to kind of do that, I think people should do good things with their money. I think that they have a big access. I think that charitable giving is good, but I don't think that they should be obligated by law to do things that are, I guess, arbitrarily determined good or bad with their money that they've earned.
All right. Dissident Tower.
Yeah, I don't care about anybody's money. I don't know. I don't really have a comment about it either. My whole thing with Hassan is that Hassan has 24,000 viewers, and if I just have one day, yeah, man, I'm going to use that to teach people. I'm an educator. It's what I do. So yeah, if I'm going to, and it should be influential. I think we're at our best when we're influential. So yeah, that's it.
And
I'll tell you one thing, criticizing Hassan really got him into line, eh?
When
I
closing
don't give a
statement.
fuck about Hassan. I don't watch Hassan. I don't give a fuck about him. I don't know who he is.
All right. And last but not least, Birbash.
You're missing two people.
Wait.
This is not going good for you.
No, and let's already go. No? Okay, never mind.
Wait,
okay,
no.
and let's
Also, I didn't go.
wait.
My
You
fucking
all
audio is
went.
working, right?
Like this was closing statement.
I already went.
No.
Need a pad and paper, geek.
Oh, you did. Okay. Okay. I went first. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't realize we were doing closing statements. Sorry.
I said it before. Like, yeah. Sorry
Oh,
for the
fair enough.
You
misunderstanding.
did. That's my
That's
fault.
fine.
That's my fault.
Fine. It's all good.
But yeah.
I was going to respond to something CTV said, but I can do it in the main topic because it's kind of relevant.
All right. Also, yeah. Quick rule from the HippyDP that I forgot, but like last time you can address a topic is during the opening statement of the next topic. So sorry about the confusion. That's on me. But yeah. Birbash, go ahead.
I guess in conclusion, it just kind of blows my mind that like it blows my mind that the people who will like talk shit on, you know, like this stuff about like when we're talking about the money. Sorry, I'm so fucking scatterbrained about this, but we were hung up like talking about like people's money and whatnot and the community activism. Well, I did also mention how if we're going to talk specifically about Hassan's community activism, I did talk about the charity my friend works for that he actually has done significant help for. That's definitely some community activism right there. But it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of rich for me hearing people talk about like criticizing all this stuff over like all this. I completely agree with Josie. Basically, there really isn't anything that I would say differently than what Josie said. All of this policing over how people spend money on shit that's like actually harmless when they could be like actually spending their money on, you know, stuff like paying out a slush fund money to cover up something scummy they did, or lobbying for climate change, for paying off fucking climate change denier lobbyists to influence the government to just let oil companies do whatever they want. I don't really have anything else to say other than that. This is all kind of just reminded me how ridiculous I found the fucking Hassan house course to be, basically. But also, I was also thinking that whichever one of you said that you were a little surprised that you thought that, oh yeah, that's right, Geek, you were saying that you thought at first this was going to be a topic that people would just kind of say who they wanted to switch with. There would be much engagement beyond that. And I am glad that we actually did manage to have like an interesting conversation that at least hopefully got some of us to think about things.
Yeah, same. And yeah, again, sorry for the confusion. I thought I made that clear, but apparently not. So yeah,
No worries.
But yeah, yeah. Before we jump into the thick of it, the main topic, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. Really appreciate that. So yeah, for everyone who is currently in chat, no matter which community, go follow our wonderful panelists. And also, if you're here, it's because you got an invite from Danabo. So go like a big shout out to him for the work that he's doing
Shout
behind
out to
the scene and
Danabo.
everything. So yeah,
Yes, big shout out to Danabo Pog.
true.
So
Twitch.tv
don't
slash
freak out. I'm gonna be.
Sorry, go
Don't freak
ahead.
out. I'm gonna be dancing because my channel decided to do a hype train. Which the deal is, I have to dance no matter what happens.
You
So
don't need to hear about it. Just dance.
I'm still gonna dance.
Shake
That's
it.
on you. That's like the worst reward to do. But yeah.
Before we move on to the next topic, I'll be away from camera for like 20 seconds while I go grab a beer.
All
I'll
right,
be
perfect. So yeah, twitch.tv slash Danabo and also shoutshopcbd.com. Enter code Danabo for 10% off. So yeah, big shout out to him for putting all of this together. And big shout out to our panelists for being here and being super based and making this this first topic really interesting. And now we're going to jump into the main topic, which is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and more specifically, the judge. There's been a lot of things said about the judge, from his ringtone to certain statements he made to Asian food to the fact that he's going hard on the defense attorney and all of this. So the main question is the judge biased, and what does this mean for the trial? So yeah, take it wherever you want, and I'm going to start with Endless Cemetery.
Oh boy. Okay. So the question is the judge in this trial biased? And it kind of relates to something that I found interesting that CTV was saying earlier about leftists and wanting to force things through the government at the point of the gun. When, if you look at the whole of American history, the only successful coup on American soil was when right-wing white supremacists took over Wilmington, North Carolina, right? John Brown, the abolitionist, was executed for treason, right? The Black Panthers, what is considered now gun control, what's considered mainly a liberal talking point, was introduced because blacks decided to arm themselves in California because they were tired of living at the point of the gun under the rule of white supremacy in the United States of America. So when we're examining the judge here, we have to examine the system he's operating in. And if you're observing this system with any level of honesty, whether we're talking about the outcomes in terms of trials, or we're talking about policing in terms of how these funds or resources are allocated, the entire system itself is biased. And I feel like from that point forward, it's fairly easy to make a case that absolutely the judge here is biased in this case. And just how he specifically handled some of the evidence in this case. Whether we're talking about 10 days before this event, August 25th, 2020, which happened to be my birthday, you had Kyle Rittenhouse observing people in that area and saying, I wish I had my gun so I could shoot those people. And the judge doesn't consider that relevant to the case because he didn't have his gun on him at the time. And yet it's perfectly acceptable to refer to Rosenbaum as a rioter or a looter because perhaps there were some people in the area lighting building on fire or a dumpster on fire or what have you, or it was acceptable to consider his killing in self-defense because he was threatening Kyle, but it was unknown whether or not he had a weapon. So it's easy to make that comparison. I feel like the judge is motivated by pure ideology, which is the case for most Americans, due to the fact that we're talking about this like a suburban mother dropping her 17-year-old off at a riot with an AR-15 to defend a used car lot. This is like completely normal. Like, I'm not going to speak for other people, but I feel like the non-Americans in here are horrified at the prospect of these kinds of things happening and them being considered regular occurrences, just accepted at face value. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I've had multiple experiences with PD and the justice system, and yeah, I feel like there's all sorts of literature that you can read about it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to throw it to Josie.
Okay.
Oh, never mind.
Perfect time. Perfect time.
How'd the dance go?
It was great. It was fun. Got like, I still heard everything you were saying. So thank you for all that. So on this trial, I like to see like the way these trials kind of happen is like, okay, the trial was brought forward. That's important, right? The step one is that we're actually hearing this case, which is really, really important. I do also appreciate how people are really looking into like, the biases and implicit biases that exist within our institutional systems. And I do like the conversational framework that is started around a lot of these things that happen. So when we talk about how the judge is being biased, saying things like this and making sure that like one thing that I think a lot of people can agree to is like not allowing the persecutor to call the people victims and things of that nature. I think that was a little bit across the line, in my opinion. I do want to see what happens as far as I think the greater conversation about rather than just a guilty verdict at all is what do we do if Kyle Rittenhouse walks away and gets in whatever it just happens? What does that mean for other people who want to say, I'm going to go put myself in a dangerous situation and claim it was self-defense and I can walk for it? It's a really scary world to be in. And it's not just a right-left thing either. If, let's say, there was a Nazi rally happening or something like that, and then somebody comes in with an AR into that situation against those people, like, can that person just mow down people, say no, there was self-defense? And I just get worried about the greater implications of what this means and where the country overall is going when we are defending these type of actions, especially when the mother literally drove a 17-year-old kid to the scene with the weapon. Like, it's just reckless. It's so reckless. And if there's nothing that has come about this, it's going to open a lot of floodgates to a world that I'm a little afraid of personally.
All right. I'm going to throw it to Montreal player.
All right, so I don't know. I was trying to find a fun angle to hit this thing with, and this criticism of the judge being biased kind of reminded me of the criticism that people had for Trump, saying that Gonzalo Curiel would be biased because of his, from Indiana, but from his Mexican heritage and his family ties to Mexican family members, and just like Judge Curiel, I wonder, can we not trust the judge to transcend his cultural background to prioritize his commitment to the law? And why don't those arguments hold up anymore in terms of bias? Yes, he might have had a patriotic song on his phone, but maybe he just loves America. I mean, if you've consecrated your life to serving the courts of the United States of America, chances are maybe you have a little respect for that institution. So that's it. That's going to be my angle on this one. Yeah.
All right. Dario.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna do my best counterpoint impression and play the centrist on this one. It seems. So in terms of bias, so a few different avenues of bias have already been mentioned. Endless and Josie and Montreal mentioned like 3 different ones, I would say. I think it's extremely important to, when we're talking about this topic, to be very precise in our language, because if we are very broad, I think almost everybody on this panel is going to agree that there is some kind of bias. So what we're actually like curious to know is, well, what kind of bias are we talking about, and did this bias influence the case, right? So I would 100% agree that most people are biased, or let's just say everybody is biased in some kind of way, right? Just the judge being as old as he is, he probably has some kind of bias. He's just by virtue of being old, by him not knowing technology or this or that, right? Like there's all kinds of things that can influence a judge. What we're really asking is, well, did he have any particular biases, right? Did he have any specific biases that went over what we would expect in this kind of situation, right? And even if we think the entire justice system is biased, even if you think that there is a certain bias against like certain actions, or like people are generally pro-guns, like anti-POC, like all these kinds of things, the justice system, right? It's important to at least be, from my view, at least for this topic, to be specific and talk about like, is this judge particularly biased? And in terms of that, I would say I haven't seen any evidence that would strongly suggest that, right? I've seen some specific mentions, as Josie mentioned, right, with the not calling people victims, and there's one other mention where people were told to clap for a witness. Those were sort of the sort of bigger things that other people have criticized. But apart from that, I haven't seen any real good clear-cut evidence that this judge is particularly biased. Now, we can talk about the system in general and how the system affects sort of, I guess, everybody in some biased manner. But I guess I hope that people have like some further evidence or some further examples or whatever, if they do think that he is particularly biased. And I would be interested to know that.
All right. I'm going to fade to Dissident Tower.
So I've read somewhat widely about charges of bias against Judge Schroeder, and so far, most of what I'm seeing is inappropriate and partisan, and honestly, it doesn't really matter anymore. Really, the prosecution has made sure of that. The prosecution has fucked this case up from the very beginning. It's not a case they should have brought for first-degree homicide. It's absolutely ridiculous. If we want to talk about partisan issues, I mean, that's fine. We can talk about partisan issues, but the right wants him acquitted, the left wants him convicted of murder because he was killing people, or that he said were looters at a protest for Black justice, and he wanted to kill looters at this protest for Black justice where people are burning down buildings in the town. Look, I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse isn't blameless, and I don't think anybody but the extremes really think that he's blameless, right? I mean, there's 2 people dead. There's another person who's permanently injured. His arm was almost blown off. And 2 other people could have been shot just as this stuff is being fired. I mean, and Kyle shot him. I mean, this isn't in dispute, right? I mean, that's not something you just walk away from and say, okay, well, sorry, kid. But I mean, the jury's going to decide if it's self-defense in accordance with our laws, considered lesser charges. And I don't know what the probability of outcomes is going to be, but I mean, neither outcome is going to delight me, and it doesn't speak to the long-term sociological implications of what's gone on here. But I haven't really seen a whole lot as far as like bias in the judge that is really all that convincing at all. And I also don't think it fucking matters.
So by a show of hands, how many of y'all have been watching the...
Wait. We start doing opening. I want to Fred to come Higby.
Yeah, so I haven't seen anything that's incredibly convincing that Judge Schroeder is biased either. I don't think that the ringtone is evidence of bias at all. I think that's like one of the most incredible reaches I've ever heard in this whole case. Lee Greenwood, like, I don't know specifically his political opinions or anything. Like, I guess some people said he's a Trump supporter. I don't know that to be fact, but like, it doesn't really matter. The song doesn't talk about politics. It's just about love for God and country. And whether you agree with that or not, like, I don't think that's a big deal to have a ringtone like that. Lee Greenwood has been honored by like every president since George W. Bush, including Obama, right? So Obama appointed him to like the National Endowment of the Arts or whatever twice, and so did George W. Bush, and then Trump did as well, and then Biden removed him. But like, I don't think that like because Trump used that song at his rallies, that shows like a major bias or anything. When we talk about like Schroeder yelling at Binger or whatever, I think that's just because Binger is incredibly terrible at his job. He was stepping all over the Fifth Amendment and like questioning Kyle about his right to remain silent, which is like a huge no-no in court. Like Schroeder even said, "You're a seasoned lawyer. You should know these things," and that's why he was getting, upset and kind of like what's the word? I guess reprimanding him. The other thing was like Binger tried to bring up evidence that they had already pre-agreed wouldn't be brought up, and the judge had ruled on that and said none of my rulings have changed. But Binger tried to do it anyway, so he yelled at him for that. But I think to like really like understand whether or not the judge has a bias, we have to understand the case as a whole, right? And I think that there's a lot of things that are like going around just in this room right now that aren't necessarily true. Like Kyle's mother never dropped him off at the scene that this happened in. Josie Ann Cemetery said that. Kyle went to Kenosha the night prior for his job as a lifeguard, got off at 8 p.m. and then went to Dominic Black's house. They went to town the next day to clean up rubble or whatever. They got asked to go to Car Source, and then they drove there in Dominic's car the next day. It wasn't his mother. Kyle wasn't in town for the riot or anything. They didn't even know it was happening until he was already there. I don't think I'll agree with, I think it was Montreal player, I think, that said, or maybe it was Dissident, I can't remember. Yeah, it was Dissident, that Kyle's not necessarily blameless. I don't think he's blameless either. I think that he is, guilty of some like minor things, like according to Corey Washington's testimony, he was chain smoking cigarettes, not old enough to do that. So I think he's guilty there. I think he's guilty of yelling EMT when he's not an emergency medical technician. I'm not necessarily sure of Wisconsin law regarding that, but I think he's guilty there. I think it's not really a smart thing for him to have been there that night in the first place, but that's an arbitrary standard that I've set. I don't think that he did anything. I don't think he's guilty of anything that he's being charged for. So I guess I'll yield back on that one. Okay, curfew. Yeah, but he's not being charged for curfew. So, yeah, he's guilty of curfew as well. Sure.
I'm going to afraid to be a bash.
Okay. So we can nitpick over whether or not the kid's mom actually dropped him off there or not. It's ultimately sort of irrelevant. So ultimately, I personally think that I honestly do think that the judge is biased. The way that the judge has conducted himself through a lot of this trial has honestly shown me quite a bit of bias. The way he acts, he clearly yes, the prosecution has like royally fucked up this case in a bunch of ways, but the ways in which he acts like so aggressive with the prosecution compared to the defense, it just gives off the vibe that he wants the fucking defense to have to really be more dominant of the time on the stand to be able to make their case better in the first place. In the grand scheme of things here, though, this is, what are the fucking words here? Ultimately, the fucking court systems, the court systems are highly incentivized to basically work in favor of and protect fuck-ups by the police and by the people who hold power. And one way this is shown is this could have all been avoided if one of the multiple cops that Kyle Rittenhouse encountered at some point would have just like asked him for his fucking ID and would have just asked him for his fucking ID and then dealt with the situation right there while he was before all this happened, because we can argue about whether or not he was dropped off by his mom or not. The ultimate thing is, if he somehow gets off on that fucking weapons charge, I'm gonna be mind blown, because there's absolutely no disputing that he was indeed an underage, that he was indeed carrying a fucking weapon in public underage. and yeah, and not like, if you're gonna try to like invoke some weird thing about hunting laws to try to justify it, because I could totally see, not necessarily anybody here, but I could totally see people trying to do that. That's the purest copium. But yeah, the judge frequently interrupts the prosecution. The judge frequently interrupts the prosecution. The way that that the judge has like handled and been so willing to brush off shit like drone evidence that could potentially have shown that actually Kyle Rittenhouse being charged at by protesters was because he was acting in a menacing manner. There's lots of testimony from people that he had indeed been acting in a rather menacing manner before the shooting. But ultimately, this why didn't we see, what's the guy's name? I think it was Michael Reinhold, the guy in Portland, who, how come we have not seen the same, how come we haven't seen the same amount of fucking charity given to Michael Reinhold? Michael Reinhold was the guy who, I believe in Portland, a leftist who shot some Proud Boy who was going around fucking menacing people, like shooting at them.
He was shooting people with bear
paintballs and
mace.
shit. And like bear mace and whatnot. That's like a very serious self-defense case. Michael Reinhold wasn't offered all this fucking due process that Kyle Rittenhouse has been getting and all this like beneficial treatment from the judge. Michael Reinhold was executed on fucking sight by federal marshals. Sorry if I'm getting a little spicy here, but like, Jesus fucking Christ, I just ask people to at least be fucking consistent. If we're gonna like fucking virtue signal about due process for Kyle Rittenhouse, where the fuck was his due process? He never got due process. Not to mention the like thousands upon thousands of people who get gunned down by police every year and then don't get to make their case in court. Yep, I'm sorry.
So
Okay, perfect. Wait. We're not done. CTV, go ahead.
Oh goodness, that was man, that was long. That was quite long. Okay.
Passionate.
I'm sorry. I have
Intro statement.
Jesus Christ.
Intro statement. Yeah.
It was good.
Jesus Christ, I like to build effect, right? How do I do that? Sometimes I make little pauses, right? And then people go, what's he going to say next? And it keeps people engaged. It's amazing the way that I do this, right? So, there has been, okay. So let's kind of take it from the last thing said and work our way back, all right? Ashley Babbitt wasn't given due process either. Right? So we'll start there. So to get away from all the other examples that would be brought up, let's get it back specifically to the case. Now, someone said something about wanting to try to make an argument about being an underage minor, right? Well, that conversation falls apart whenever it comes to the most recent court case, especially in D.C., which one was it that allowed for the concealed carrying of handguns? I can't remember which one that was. But the fact of the matter is that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As a matter of fact, in the Constitution, age was not an initial thing that was put in as a part of who was allowed to vote. That was put in later, right? And we've all kind of colloquially agreed to certain age restrictions in certain states. However, that varies from state to state. Like, for example, in Arizona, you can open carry at 14, right? Without having to have any type of permit or anything like that. So that's him being guilty of that is only a state charge. And if the state wants to pursue that, then they also need to pursue the same guy that was there with his firearm that ultimately Kyle had to defend himself against, right? And anybody that was there past curfew needs to be charged. So the fact of the matter is that you have to start making a real cost-benefit analysis when it comes to charges and who you're bringing them up against. And if you're going to hold Kyle Rittenhouse criminally liable for being out after curfew, then you have to do that to every other single person. So that's why that's not going to stick. And I feel like the judge has been more than straight down the middle. The prosecution came to the case without, I feel like, being ready at all. And there's been quite a few moments where it's like, you kind of asked for that one, didn't you, buddy? So I'm interested to see how the rest of the conversation turns out. But rest assured, I'll be listening, and we'll go from there.
All right, real quick, just to be sure, did I forget anyone? No, perfect. You can engage. The floor is yours.
Okay.
Just I actually wanted to ask because a lot of people brought up like general talk about Kyle Rittenhouse and should he have been there, like what did he do and all these things, right? Are we gonna have a general conversation about Kyle Rittenhouse, or are we gonna talk about the judge's bias, right? Because
Yeah,
I don't
the judge
think
bias,
those are
exactly.
yeah, but I don't think those are like the same conversations, right? Because we can talk about, well, what happened in similar cases, right? And I think, what was it, Beer Bash, you brought up like a different case and said, well, this person, was it Rhino, didn't receive due process and these kinds of things, right? But that wouldn't really be an argument in terms of like this case, right? Well, the argument would be all people were served due process, right? Not that, well, these people didn't get, so Kyle also shouldn't have, right? You don't want to fuck other people because other people were treated unjustly, right? As we would argue, right? You're muted again, by the way.
Can I just say something really quick? Or
Sure, go ahead.
okay, so because I got to respond to some of this stuff. So the reason why Ashley Babbitt was not given due process is if we consider Joseph Rosenbaum and the people that Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed, if we consider him having shot and killed those people in self-defense, if they can be considered rioters and looters just because they were present while like rioting and looting was happening, there was a literal assassination plot that was happening on January 6th. So like, if you were there at the Capitol, you fucked around and you found out. So second of all, if we're doing the charge everyone else who was there breaking curfew with their firearms and stuff, I'm for that. Cool, do that. Not everyone else is going to be charged with murder. Also, the interesting thing that I found when we're talking about whether or not this specific judge is displaying bias or not, I think it's fairly relevant to mention the other cases like Michael Reinhold and cases like Philando Castile and Tamir Rice, because it establishes a precedent in this country, which gets into what Josie Rossi was saying earlier about how what the outcome of this case is important, because it'll establish the fact that no matter whether your mom drops you off or you go there with your friend after, swim practice, whatever, you can totally just grab your AR-15 and go to a riot, because there is no shot. You're telling me that this kid did not know that there was something funky happening in Kenosha after watching the George Floyd uprisings for the last 2.5 months, right? This is August 25th we're talking about. Plus, this gets into the evidence that, because Cam Higby, you got your hand raised. I wanted to ask you a question earlier because you mentioned that the judge yelled at the prosecution because they brought up evidence that they weren't supposed to bring up. Do you know by chance what the evidence was?
It was the video or whatever from however long before, right? But again, like
10 days.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
10 days.
I thought it was 15, but whatever, 10, 15 doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Did we ever get like full okay, so I guess I'll pose a couple questions. So first of all, did we ever get full confirmation from anywhere that video was actually Kyle? Is Kyle's face actually in it? What relevance does that have to this case? And also, the judge did not allow any of the criminal records of any of the other people involved in this to be submitted as evidence. Joseph Rosenbaum was released from a mental institution the day of the shooting. That's the bag he had. The bag was a bag of his belongings from the mental institution because he body slammed his fiancée on the ground, caused her to bleed everywhere. There's a 911 call that shows the description. And then he went to jail, got out, tried to kill himself in front of McDonald's, and then went to a mental hospital. The judge didn't let any of that be put forth as evidence either. So I think that it's pretty consistent.
I'm curious. What are we actually talking about, right? Because if we're talking about the judge's bias, right, we can say, well, is the judge biased for not admitting evidence, right? But I think that's more of a legal question, right? And I'm
Let's
sure
talk
is
about if the
anybody here.
audience is biased.
Well, yeah, but is anybody here like a lawyer or like a law student? Because I've seen law students and one lawyer as well speak about this,
my
and
answer.
Sure, but they said that in terms of like Wisconsin state law, like these kinds of evidence wouldn't necessarily be admissible, right? Without a really good reason or it being basically a one-to-one comparison, right? And in terms of like judges and saying, well, what does this say for like everybody else who gets tried across the country, right? Again, it's to my understanding that like every single judge is to some degree like judges differently, right? That's why you need to know who the judge is when you're a good lawyer and you go to the judge, right? It's because judges, and specifically this judge, to my understanding as well, has a very specific way of going about things. They're very stubborn in their ways. They might be old-fashioned, right? So this doesn't necessarily mean that if it was to be appealed or like go to a different judge, that you would get the same kind of verdict, right? And I mean, that's just how the legal system works, I think. But I might be wrong.
Real quick, just wanted to precise one thing, is that like you don't have to raise your hand every time. It's really a last resort if you cannot jump in. Like I think the conversation is pretty chill so far. So if you have something to say, just
Well, by God, we can change all that, geek. Don't you think for 1 second I can't take the energy of this fucking room sky fucking high? And you know why I can do that?
Please.
Because I'm CTV now.
All right, Jesse, go ahead.
All right.
Now we're gonna.
Oh,
we're gonna
well,
stay right
Montreal
here.
had his hand up. I'll let Montreal speak, and then I'll give my point.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I think the prosecution's in a terrible spot. Honestly, I mean, look, should he have been there? I mean, probably not and stuff. But I mean, if you have a rifle in your hands, okay, you're in a hostile environment, all right, and people are coming at you. You have a good reason, and with things in their hands, some of them look like guns because they are, right? You have a good reason to think that people might kill you, and you're going to use that rifle. And I think that's kind of what people are looking at. And I think the prosecution's in a tough spot because now it's like, everyone's watching them. They know this had so much coverage. It's going to be televised. What are they supposed to do? Charge him with breaking his curfew? Like they're never going to get away with this kind of thing. So that's what they're stuck with. That's the hand they're dealt. But you have this kind of case, and you're just like, I mean, hey, I know, like, it's like now I have to make this moral battle for the cameras almost, right? So, and I can't, I'm in this position, and it's like, if I don't pull out all the stops, okay, the public's going to fucking crucify me at this point, right? So what do you got to do? You got to do some creative fucked up shit, okay? And the judge, because, and he's not biased, because just like Gonzalo Curiel, okay, can't be biased against Trump, okay, this guy has to, his first priority has to be his conviction to the law, right? So now the prosecution's there. They're trying to be all creative. They're trying some stuff desperately to find an angle to unlodge something. And if they're going to do that and they're doing some messed up stuff, the judge, being a good moderator, has to say, hey, you're doing some stuff. I know what you're doing. You're doing some stuff, okay? Or you're trying to get away with some stuff. I mean, what else can the judge do in this position, right? So if we're talking about his bias, I mean, think about the angle the prosecution has to come at this in, and what choice they have but to not try to sneak something in, not try to get away with something, right? For pure optics or for whatever reason, they gotta make something good come out of this. It's just when you're in that position, you start doing some weird stuff. The judge's gonna call you on some weird stuff, and I think. And then the media, they have what's their interest in this, right? They have to look at this thing. They're like, fuck, man, I mean, we kind of all know this kid's going to get off because for whatever the reasons are, it's like, it's not illegal to be an idiot. Okay. It is illegal to murder people, but it's not illegal to, defend yourself if you think, there's a threat to your life. And unfortunately that's what it is. But what are they going to do? Everyone wants to know about this, and they're going to cover it with like, well, day 6 of we all know what's going to happen trial. No, they gotta gotta play up whatever fucking angle they have. So they're like, judge bias. Look, his phone rang, right? I mean, they're grasping at straws too, I think, right? And I think that's what we're seeing because, and last one. Think about all the people that have sunk cost, okay, into making this guy Kyle Rittenhouse the guiltiest asshole in the universe, right? I mean, people have probably burnt bridges on this, okay? They've shamed people. They've made whole diatribes about this, and then to have everything kind of all the details like gone over, one by one, and then it's like, hey, you remember you made a snap judgment, and you kind of fucked up because of your own personal beliefs, okay? It's a little embarrassing, so it's like you got to grasp at whatever you can. Oh, it was rigged, right? It was rigged. Judge was biased. Anything, and I think that's what's going on here. That's my opinion of this.
Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you for that. I am gonna go and say this. Okay. So Beer Bash said something that was very important that I wanted to highlight again about how the institutional powers protect itself. So police officers, the system, but we also have to also look into like how American government systems are. We also protect judges in a very, very specific way, where if attorneys cannot go after the judges correctly, because of the fact if you start going after the judge, it's very seen as a faux pas. The system isn't really designed for you to be able to call out judges. And I think honestly, like when you start looking at these things, it's hard to say, okay, we're going to call out this judge's biases. They exist here and there. However, the prosecutors aren't going to want to go that direction because the prosecutors still want to work in the state. Right, like there is an entire system that is designed to protect judges in this way. So when I look at this, I'm like, well, why are we going after the biases? Of course, there's going to be a bias here. This is just how the court systems work. I truly believe where the things are more egregious are some of the things about the omissions of evidence, talking about how we're communicating, like those type of things are a big issue because that is something that the courts could bring up. But I do get a little frustrated or annoyed when we start focusing on trying to go after the judge because that never works. It never works. Like in an American governmental system, it's just not a good strategy. It's never been a good strategy. So I really wish that we would be able to look at this case in a more nuanced way of like, why was this kid holding a gun in Kenosha trying to cosplay, superhero defending public property? Right, he's getting separated from his group and all of those things. That is really where we need to be talking about. And when we talk about what the punishments, like what is the punishment? Because there's got to be a punishment when you end a human life. There's got to be something that happens. And there are so many examples where people like Kyle Rittenhouse are given so much due process. And they're until the very end where they're walking away, when there are other people in this country who aren't even given the due process of a court at all and are killed at by a gun by a police officer who they get to play judge, jury, and executioner. So here we are talking about another tragic shooting of somebody trying to play hero, and now 2 people are dead.
It gets into
yeah, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, it gets into what my comrade Alec was saying on the last stream about this conservative fantasy that's like, as much as it is a meme, it's also as much a meme that they pretend like this isn't a thing, where you want to go out there and get a self-defense kill. That's why you always have your gun on you, whatever. Like, that's why when you think of self-defense for your house, you're not thinking of bars, you're not thinking of alarm systems, you're thinking about all the different guns you get. You want to go out to a riot or whatever and shoot someone in self-defense. And that's why he was out at the bar celebrating, cheesing, making social media, trying to get famous, all this stuff after the fact. And it goes into what I was saying earlier about the cultural biases that we have in America, where that's considered acceptable, right? Where a lot of us in here have no idea who Michael Reinhold is, right? But we have lionized Ashley Babbitt like she didn't get due process when
that's because she didn't.
She didn't. You're absolutely correct. But at the same time, Michael Reinhold.
And the officer that shot her, right?
Mhm.
Didn't fucking go up to like try to check on the situation, fucking nothing, right?
Right.
Obviously wasn't in communication with the other two officers that were there seconds fucking later, right? So like,
Right.
I'm not saying you're saying this, but
No.
what I'm saying is that the government itself failed on that fucking day, and that anybody that thinks that somehow that the government's actions are supposed to be justified on that day is completely full of fucking shit. And Ashley Babbitt was in fact murdered by her own fucking government.
No, but critically thinking, like CTV, like think about this.
Did you just try to go for a vegan thing there? Did you just do that?
No, a veteran. Sorry. Sorry. I think.
Ashley figured out. Ashley
All right,
figured
anyway.
out what it was like to be black for about 24 hours. And she couldn't hang.
CTV. Yeah, CTV. Like I know there's a lot of commentators that commentate about the lives of black people who, why didn't they just listen to the police? Why didn't they just comply? If they would have just complied, they wouldn't be dead right now. So what is it? CTV. Ashley
If she would
Babbitt
have just
doesn't follow a
complied with the
direct
result of the
command,
election, should have just
Or to
complied
co-
with the
or-
result of the
or-
election.
or
How
comply
much
to the
of
locked
that scene
doors,
have
or
you-
the police officer saying stand down.
Stop. How much of that fucking video scene have you actually watched from that day? Because now we're off on a
I've
fucking
watched
tangent.
it.
Really?
I've
So she was
watched
never
it,
given
yeah.
any fucking command by any fucking officer that was there. The son of a bitch was in the
She
room,
was
hidden
already
behind the fucking
trespassing.
window. He
Why
was
was she
hidden
there?
behind the fucking window, popped out, hit the
Why was
shot.
she there?
Right?
Why was
As
she
a matter
there?
of fact,
She was criminally
there?
trespassing, and there was a gun
she was not
pointed
given a
through that
command by the
hole.
officer with the fucking gun to
But
do
is
a
the judge
fucking
biased?
thing.
Why was she
I-
there?
There was a whole fucking building full of fucking people there. That
Why?
right there you have to understand from the fucking start. And the
Why?
officer that pulled the fucking trigger did not say, stop, don't fucking move. No, the son of a bitch was hidden back in the fucking room, pops out, pops her, kills her. There's two officers right behind her. You got no fucking defense here. So the best thing that we can fucking do right now is to move on from Ashley Babbitt, right? And get back to the Kyle Rittenhouse and the judge, because that's the actual topic at hand.
I actually, thank you, CTV,
Mm.
bringing it back. It's actually a bit frustrating for me because I listened to Josie and Endless talk, right? And in your opening statements, you both said that you felt the judge was being biased, and like this was like a open and shut case for like him doing weird stuff. Like,
But that doesn't
evidence.
mean that I was going. I don't think action can be or will be taken against a biased judge, no matter how biased he is.
Sure,
But that's
okay.
literally what I said in my last statement, which is like it's a silly line of argumentation to go down that road to try to change the result of a court case by going after the judge. It just never works in American.
Sure, but
court
don't you think that it would be more prudent, I guess, to go down avenues where you might find like some agreement with people from the other side, right? Because I've seen like people on this panel, right, from the conservative side as well, say that like it is possible that the judge could have some biases as well, right? And you can in some degrees, right, but it might not have influenced this case specifically, right? And if you can find some common ground there, you can talk about things that maybe more people would agree with in terms of like the entire system, right? How it fucks over citizens, as CTV mentions, right? Or like how the state murders like some of its citizens, stuff like that. I don't think it's prudent to as Montreal player actually said, sort of grasp at straws to sort of attack the judge when we all know it's like the judge isn't really going to have anything done against him in this case, right? Because he's just a judge, more or less, right? He isn't specifically biased more than any other judge is, and the way that the legal system is set up, right? You can't really attack them for these kinds of things.
I would
but
say
I
that.
haven't heard like a real example of a bias other than like say the phone ringer.
I was just-
I haven't heard
miss
like
something?
a wide
That's-
array of any sort of bias. There's a lot of propaganda about how this or that shouldn't have been done. A lot of, well, what about this and what about this and what about this, and none of that shit matters, right? I mean, that doesn't have anything to do with any specific charge of bias. It just speaks to some sort of systemic bias. We can talk about that. I mean, that's cool, but that has fuck all to do with whether or not the judge is biased, right?
Yeah.
Nothing. Zero.
I agree. That's what I said in my opening
ridiculous.
statement as well, right? I think it's important to differentiate like the avenues of discussion that are happening, because I do feel like to some degree we're talking past each other.
But then that doesn't that beg the question as to how you could be an unbiased person operating in a clearly biased system?
I mean, your brain works on bias.
Well,
That's how
sure,
you sense the world.
But endless, the way that you can do that is talking about, as I was trying to say, like, does this go above and beyond what we would expect, right? Because you have to take the system into account. You can't just say, well, who cares? Like, everything is biased, so fuck it all, right? I mean, we have
just
to
like nihilistic.
Oh no, this is no. The point I'm making, I feel like, is very clear. Where this is just the state of America, where if you're a white kid with an AR-15, then you're allowed to just walk into combat zones like that, and no one asks any questions.
But that's not clear as to why that has anything to do with the judge being biased against the prosecution.
But we've already, I think I've already abandoned the bias part. Like the bias part is not. Like,
if you're asking me,
what you're saying, at least in some part, is based as fuck. Correct.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm saying, like, it's the same way that you can't demonstrate. Like, a judge is not going to sit on the stand and be like, "Yeah, I intentionally send black kids to jail so that I can make money off of them being in jail." That will never happen. So you have to look at outcomes. You know what I mean?
I must have accidentally muted myself.
That sucks. Do you have something to say?
He's not a black.
Yeah. I thought I was jumping in earlier. I thought people were just ignoring me, but I actually must have accidentally muted myself. So I guess I kind of want to like talk about first. I mean, we keep going back to this gun thing, like resorting back to this thing. He's a white kid with a gun or whatever, but we've seen like social justice groups parade around with guns as well. And also, this weapon was not illegal. Beer talked about this in his opening statement and said that he'd be amazed and it would show some kind of immense bias if Kyle somehow skated on the weapons charge. But it's physically not illegal for him as a 17-year-old to possess a rifle with a barrel length of more than 16 inches. They talked about this in the courtroom. I've done interviews with with huge 2A criminal defense lawyers from Wisconsin. Kyle was not illegally possessing. 948.60 subchapter 3C specifically outlines and targets 17-year-olds possessing rifles with surgical precision and makes an exception for them to possess rifles as long as the barrel length is more than 16 inches.
That's cool. What you were saying about the social justice people carrying rifles thing was kind of wild because, you know, the Mulford Act and stuff. But also, what I'm talking about here is the implication was that if what I'm understanding, you can tell me if I'm strawmanning you, was the implication that people don't behave differently when they're people of color or cultural minorities or social minorities in public with guns as opposed to white people with guns? Was that what you were?
I mean, I'm not going to argue about the implicit bias of people, like when you haven't even given me like a specific sample of people, right? Like, I mean, I could argue about like general implicit bias testing, but I mean,
have you never heard of
what are we getting to here is like, I guess what I'm asking, everybody keeps coming back to Kyle with the gun, but the gun wasn't illegal. So like, and we're talking about the judge having a bias because he kind of dismissed that unless the prosecution can show that the barrel length is more than 16 inches, which they obviously can't because the gun has been in the courtroom for the entire first 5 days of the trial and they never once attempted to measure it, even though the burden of proof is on them. Like, I mean, I guess we can stop talking about the gun.
Yeah. So this is why.
I mean, I'm not saying that I think it's kind of silly, right? I don't necessarily know that it's a good idea or whatever for Kyle to show up there with a gun, but that's not for me to say. Like, it's an arbitrary standard. It's not illegal. He's a free American citizen other than curfew. And you can say like, oh, I think that we should round everybody up and charge them with curfew, but that's not going to happen. It's impossible. There were hundreds, if not thousands of people on the streets that night.
Right.
So they were only arresting people for felonies.
People need to get over that the weapon charged against him is not going. That's going to be dropped.
Yeah. Here's what I'm.
There is going to be a charge though, and that's the person who is actually keeping the rifle for him.
Yeah, but I think Dominic will get off too. I think he will because Wisconsin straw purchase laws say that in order to illegally straw purchase a weapon for a person, the person that you're purchasing for cannot possess. But Kyle could possess. He couldn't own because he's not 18, but he could possess. So Dominic's my prediction is that he's gonna get off very easily as long as Kyle skates in the weapons possession, which I'm sure he will. Dominic will also get off, and you don't have to own a weapon to be able to possess it.
So here's what I'm saying.
What about the state line?
He didn't take the gun over state lines. It was always in the safe of Dominic Black's
state in Wisconsin.
So and also, I just want to say, if we're talking just purely on the subject of bias, because this is what I'm not sure if I'm making what I'm talking about clear enough. When we're talking about how people move with different people versus other people in possession of guns, when I was saying earlier, the under question of biases, if you're asking to demonstrate specifically how this individual judge is being biased. You can't really do that. You have to look at outcomes. And like I was saying earlier, through a biased system where you literally have something called the Mulford Act. The reason why I was bringing this up is because gun law in America literally exists because of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, right? Like, when you're carrying rifles, when you're a white kid carrying a rifle, that's seen as acceptable. But when you're a Tamir Rice with a toy gun, people can just run up on you and shoot you, no questions asked.
I mean, groups like claiming to be the Black Panthers or whatever. I'm not saying that they have any like connection to the original Black Panthers groups or anything, but like literally just before this shooting, there was groups claiming to be the Black Panthers assembling with big black guns that are scary, and nothing happened to them because they didn't point them at anybody. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't incite violence. They were just marching around with guns, and that's fine. You have the right to do that in America.
But that's the exception that defines the rule, because the precedent's already set that they're willing to go above and beyond, even legally, to make sure that people that look like me don't possess weapons.
So this
Y'all
is
do realize, hold on. Y'all do realize that Kyle Rittenhouse is Hispanic, right?
And that he only shot white people, right?
So like, spicy white?
I guess that was kind of a straw man because nobody's actually brought that up. But
okay, wait, can I just?
There. I think it's a great fact.
I guess that just tells you that everybody else didn't think it was a good idea, right? To one, be a pedophile and try to take his rifle. Two, to grab a skateboard, right, and go try to hit him over the fucking head. And three, point a fucking pistol at him, right? Like, that's a bad fucking idea. 3 strikes, you're out, buddy. I don't know what to fucking tell you, right?
Why was he?
Yeah,
but
why
he
do
was
you
there
have
in
to
the
be there,
first.
though?
Yeah,
why
he was
does it
there in the
matter?
first
Why
place
did
with his
anybody
rifle.
else have to be
Why
there?
does
It matters because
Okay,
everybody
okay,
else
okay,
was
okay,
there.
okay, okay.
Quick question.
Okay. One at a time. Endless, go ahead.
All right, you saw my anti-cop T-shirt that I was wearing last stream, right?
No.
So you had an anti-cop T-shirt on.
Okay. So if I showed up to that riot with my AR-15 with an anti-cop T-shirt on, how far do you think I would have got?
I'm not allowed to kill you in that situation.
Like,
oh, the police absolutely are.
no, they're not.
No,
They
you're
do
not-
all the
You're not
time.
pointing your
Away with
gun
it.
at them.
You don't believe that the police are allowed to just shoot people like that?
Have you ever heard of
Open up a
Castile?
conversation
Not
about
under,
police.
not under the law. No, they're not. You guys
Wait.
neglect the fact. I heard somebody in their opening statement say that thousands of people are shot and killed by the police every year without due process. That's not true. The numbers barely break 1,000 every single year, and in almost every year, at least 90%. It's usually closer to 99% of every single person shot and killed by the police, white, black, Hispanic, male, female. It doesn't matter. Is armed.
There's a very important thing happening
the
right
point.
now. There's a very important thing
That's the
happening
point.
right now.
If the gun,
People
if the
talking.
couple,
Okay,
Dario,
Yeah,
go
we're
ahead.
talking about being armed. and
Dario,
like, dude.
I want to hear only Dario for now.
Sure. There's a very important thing happening right now is that people are kind of talking past each other, but pretending like they're talking about the same thing, right? So there's a difference between saying, this is the way the system is right now, right? We can say, well, you can make the argument, at least, Josie and Endless, you can make the argument that it doesn't matter how the rules on the books are, it doesn't matter what the legal system is, right? If you're a black man going to a rally with an AR-15, you will get stopped more than like a white kid, right? You can say these things, right? You can
Thank
make
you
that
for answering
argument.
this question honestly.
Sure, and we can agree on that, right? But
It
at
was
the
never a
same
question.
time, But at the same time, we can also say, well, if you just look at the rules on the books and how things should be based on the rules, right? They should have the same ability to do these things, right? And we can make a different argument talking about, well, what do we think about the rules in general, right? Are there any rules we would like to change? Are there any laws on the books we would like to change to prevent these things from happening, right? If we're just going to talk about, well, think
the issue
in
is the
general, system-
misapplication of the law. That's the problem, is that the law is not applied equally.
Well, sure.
Right, Dario. And another thing you want to say.
Yeah, just a moment, Josie. But do you understand, Endless? This is a fundamentally different conversation, right? We can talk about.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? In terms
I
of like,
think
what
it's-
are
the
the
judge's
rules
bias?
and how are they? Well,
It's all the same justice system, and all the same people operate under the same system.
sure, but I don't think I would agree with that, right? I would say there's a difference in terms of like how are the laws created, right? Who votes on the laws in terms of like state laws? Like some states have different laws than other states. Areas have different, like those are generally made by the people in those states, right? And applied by the people in those states, but they're not enforced necessarily by the same people, right? They are enforced by the justice system, right? And the justice system might be biased or the rules might be biased, but changing that is a different conversation, right? Because if the conversation is about the rules themselves, then you would advocate for changing the rules within the justice system, but it doesn't seem like that's the conversation, right? So the conversation is fundamentally, how do we make sure that the rules are enforced equally, right? But I think the difference is that Cam was talking about the rules being on paper equal, right? Saying that you could be a black kid like going to a protest with an AR-15 and the cops wouldn't be able to just shoot you, right? That's what he was saying in terms of like the rules. But you're saying, well, the rules are applied differently, and that's where the miscommunication is happening.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's because that's my point, is that sure, like Thomas Jefferson said, all people should be created equal or whatever, and own slaves, whatever. But
That's
like
a whole other conversation.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's the same thing I'm talking about, where it's like, sure, on paper, to appease the liberals, you could say it says this, but when the rubber meets the road, it's always done a different way,
Okay,
and
so
it's always legitimized after the fact by saying, "Oh, he was armed. Oh, he was mentally ill. Oh, he was being charged. Whatever."
But a good question
there
could
are
then be
cases-
to ask Cam. You could ask Cam, hey, Cam, do you think the rules are applied differently based on the skin color of the person sometimes? Do you think that happens?
Well, that's the question: is the judge biased, right?
Yeah,
Well-
I don't think if we're talking about like America as a whole, I don't think that really has anything to do with
you've
Bruce
kind of gotten
Schroeder.
you've definitely gotten off the topic of talking about the judge, and you're talking more about the system across the
No,
United
we
States.
want to
Otherwise,
talk
there's
about
no
American
fucking
system.
way that you could be sitting there justifying all this racist bullshit that you keep trying to put on to all cops everywhere, because all cops everywhere are not like that, right? So let's get back to talking about the judge rather than this entire system problem, because we could definitely start talking about Ferguson and how the Democrat-run government there clearly was not right trying to look out for the best interests of the people. They were only kept trying to raise tax revenue so that they could probably line their own fucking pockets, right? That's why there was a federal agency that did a whole fucking investigation of this thing, right?
I'm not a
So that's
Democrat,
why we
so
need
you
to make
can-
sure we're keeping this
you don't
conversation
need to waste your time with any talking points on
to the case right here with the judge, which I still have not heard yet or seen any example of an actual bias. There's only been the speculation of bias. So if we get back to the topic, that would be wonderful.
So basically, what we're asserting is that the individual is not subject to his own culture, and that he's operating without bias in an objectively biased system. That's where we're going with
I
this.
think that was the conclusion, CTV, is that I think most people ended up agreeing that the judge isn't specifically like himself super ultra turbo racist or biased against Kyle, but the system itself does tend to sort of produce certain outcomes.
It's not that you have to hate black people. It's that just you have to be more willing to humanize white people.
If we talk
he's
about
clearly
like the
doing.
institutional protection that
Okay,
somebody brought up earlier, I
Kyle
think
Rittenhouse
people-
is
Wait,
Hispanic,
I
right?
want to hear from Cam.
I thought Kyle was black.
Cam, finish your
I
point.
just keep wondering how we keep ending up on this fucking this particular line of questioning and stuff, pointing
Was
out
he
black
also
people,
non-binary?
and that
I
has
just want to use
that
this
has-
proper
Which
and
term.
that
country
right
should he have
there
been
again
tried in
has
to get a
nothing
fair
to do
trial?
with the case that we're talking about. It's
Yeah.
clearly a non sequitur meant to try to distract from the actual conversation. So there's no reason to keep bringing up any other race
It's
other than
directly related.
if you're going to bring up race,
directly
the
related.
race of the
Related to it
individuals
all.
that are involved. Period.
If we talk about like the institutional protection or whatever, like the institution is trying to protect itself, I don't think the logical conclusion, if we assume that that's what's happening, is that Judge Schroeder would favor Kyle. I think it would actually be the exact opposite, because the only reason that shooting happened, the only reason that people decided to go out that night with AR-15s to protect private property is because the police weren't doing their jobs and local leaders weren't allowing them to. So the system protecting itself, the logical conclusion, if we follow that line of reasoning, would
Who
be that
asked
the
him to be
system
there?
would crucify Kyle.
Cam,
Who
well,
asked him to
Cam,
be there?
Well, Cam, I think the issue there is I think
Nobody asked him to be there.
to my knowledge, I
Somebody
think
did
the
ask
sys-
him to be there.
Yeah,
Well,
he followed
Cam,
a Facebook.
He was
post.
asked to be there.
And whether or
Who
not he was
asked him
asked
to
to
be
be there
there?
doesn't
He was
actually
asked-
fucking
yeah,
matter,
it
considering
doesn't.
that everybody else was fucking there, and it ain't like there was just somebody sending out fucking wedding
answered a
invitations
Facebook post.
to fucking Kenosha, okay?
There's 2 points I want to hit here. So first of all, the first one is if we watch the trial, we know that he was asked to be there. Nick Smith asked him to
By
be
the
there.
police?
Wait, listen. Just listen to me. Nick
The
Smith
people who
asked
own
him
the
to be there.
property did not ask him to be there.
Nick Smith was asked to assemble a plan for that night by Sam and Sal, the business owners. Now, Sam denied that, or Sal denied that. Why? Because there's a conflict of interest with civil liability with Sam. Sam also conceded that the only way Nick Smith, Kyle
What a
Rittenhouse,
wild
Dominic Black,
self-report.
any of them could have ever been in the buildings is if one of his family members let him in. Sal went on to perjure himself when he was asked, have you ever met Kyle Rittenhouse? And he goes, no, I've never met Kyle Rittenhouse. Pulls up a picture. Who's that on the left? Oh, that's me. And who's that? Oh, that's the defendant. Yeah, perjured himself. He has a civil a conflict of interest with civil liability. All other evidence and testimony shows that they had permission to be there. The building was unlocked for them. They were given keys. They were inside, and the only way they could have gotten in is if they had permission. The other thing, somebody mentioned this a while ago, and I never touched on it because I was muted on accident, and that's my fault. But somebody was saying that he was like pointing his gun around at people. So one of the like strongest evidence for this is that he Yellow Pants said that he pointed his gun at him, right? But if you actually watch the video where Yellow Pants alleges this, he goes, hey, I remember you. You told me to get off the car. You went, get off the car. And he motions, gestures, imitating Kyle, holding his rifle at a resting position and not pointed at anybody. Yellow Pants admitted this.
Just having a rifle is totally normal.
Cam, I think you're kind of
Within his
Yeah, it is.
I think you're kind of
Completely
misrepresenting.
normal.
I think you're kind of
God bless
misrepresenting
America.
the point.
God bless America.
Cam, when people say he wasn't asked to be there, I think they're meaning more in like a legal sense, right? So I think Josie said by the police, right? Because
why does he need to be asked by the police? It's his right. Like aside from curfew, right? Like he has just as much a right.
Curfew.
Yeah.
Well,
so did everybody else, including Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber.
Cam, but
they
the
would be.
issue is just because somebody does a bad thing does not mean that other people get to do a bad thing, right?
I agree with you.
So when we're saying why does he have to be there? Why was he there? Right? We're talking in like he wasn't asked in an official manner by like the police to be there, like patrolling or like taking care, making sure the people are staying safe and like doing these things, right?
But that's not a strong position, I don't think, though. Like he had just as much a right to be there as everybody else. Sure. But the fact is that
how did we
get
get back
there
to
because
this?
of curfew? Well, but I think actually when we look at Kenosha's like ordinance for curfews, it actually doesn't apply to demonstrators. And you could say that Kyle is there demonstrating, I guess, some kind of show of force to prevent the building from, or I guess more so his friends. Kyle was doing more rendering aid. But
did we get back here because you guys are mad I owned you about how it's cool for a white kid to show up to a riot with an AR-15, and then if I showed up, I would get
show
shot?
me an instance where a black person possessing an AR-15 has been shot. What
is rendering aid?
The Mulford Act, dude.
Rendering aid, bandaging people up who have been shot with rubber bullets by the police, or tear gassed. What do you mean rendering aid? He did this all night. He had a med kit and he rendered aid to several people. Yeah.
So did he render aid to the people he shot?
No, because those people were attacking him, and the best way to reduce harm in that situation, a lot of people say like he's trying to flee the scene of the crime or whatever, even though like every law that warrants like fleeing the scene of a crime requires attempt to evade arrest or prosecution. He was running to the police, right? He wouldn't render aid to those people. Like let's say Joseph Rosenbaum, the reason he ran isn't to flee arrest or prosecution, or he wouldn't have run to the police. He was fleeing or retreating rather probably for harm reduction. He hears more shots going off. You don't want to have to defend yourself. And again, that's speculation, but like
you wouldn't want to be there at all.
Yeah, neither would anybody else that was there breaking fucking curfew. That's why that comment's a non sequitur.
Exactly. I guess
I feel like they all went there for a little bit different reason.
And Joseph Rosenbaum, to be clear, was not there for Black Lives Matter.
Do you have any evidence?
He literally
of that,
said he was there to show. He literally was talking about how he wanted to talk.
He never said that.
So the judge is definitely biased.
Yeah, he is. The judge is absolutely.
He never said anything about going there wanting to start trying.
Well, he definitely went up on social media, and they didn't let him admit it in evidence, and now that's the reason you're saying that.
What did you also
brought
up the bar?
Okay, I want to frame to Birbash.
I looked at social media. It's not there.
I want to frame to Birbash. Go ahead.
Muted again.
He's still
You're
muted.
You're muted.
Wow.
Every time.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
muted.
Discord, bro.
Still muted.
Still muted.
Oh wow.
Comrade.
I wonder if he's deafened now too. He can't hear us.
Still muted. And it's not working.
Still muted. At this point,
Comrade,
I
is
want to
he
keep this
arguing with his
meme
chat?
going. Even if he
He talks, he's still muted.
When
Yeah,
he
even
talks,
if we-
just tell him he's
yeah.
muted.
yeah, just yeah.
He kicked his
All right.
the cable to his microphone or something.
Let me know when
It's not
when it's
working,
off.
bro.
Yeah, it's still not working, bro. What the fuck? Yeah,
I'm gonna put a little observation here. Okay, I'm a play the players, not the cards kind of person. Okay, this judge is definitely not biased. Okay, because getting the Rittenhouse bad crowd to talk about it any differently is like pulling teeth. Okay, we want to avoid is the judge biased, because he's definitely not conversation.
He's
It's all fucking
1000%
fuss,
biased.
and talk
bro.
about literally anything
Then
else.
make an
Being
argument.
biased. What
I have
what-
been this whole time,
No,
and
you
your whole.
haven't. You've been
what
talking
It's
about
just
country
like the
does
last
that
time.
try to get
Where I
trial?
tell you
One
something
at a
that's
time.
going
Whoa. Okay, Montreal finished after that endless, and after that dissident. If Virbash doesn't have his sound solved, and after
If
that
it's the
Dario.
system and the culture and the this and the that, what country should he have been tried in to actually get this process going for him to not get a biased, judgment? I mean, is justice even possible? Maybe we should just like let people decide by phoning a hotline and betting $1 or something. It's like
Judgment is
seriously at
possible
this
within
point.
the system, right?
That's not the question,
the
though.
point.
The question is
That's
he
not what we're talking
biased? Yes, he's absolutely subject to the culture that he was
Absolutely.
raised in.
Okay.
He is absolutely subject to the biases of the system that he operates in.
Like
This is just like a no.
where
I
has he
don't
shown
get
that
it.
bias. Like,
That's- I don't
where is
understand.
he outwardly showed in that bias? Can we bring up like
Okay.
an actual talking point that like people are using?
The fact that we're
Yeah,
even
yeah.
having this trial in the
Can we talk
first
about this
place.
real quick? Victim
Yeah.
versus rider. Can we talk about that? Because that's
Can you guys
actually an
not-
argument.
No,
Can you
okay,
guys hear me
so
now?
oh my god, can I please finish my point?
Yes, we can.
I'm sorry, Cemetery. Go on.
The fact that he's even on trial in the first place is the point, dog. Like I was saying, if I was out there with my AR-15 to clap up some some Klansmen, I would. There's no shot. Michael
Prove
Ryan.
it.
there's
Show
no
me.
shot. There's-
Because it sounds like
Michael
maybe they're
Ryan,
gonna
no
go
trial.
and that's
No,
why
no
really
trial.
clear.
Okay,
Stop,
One at a time.
Stop.
One
Okay,
at a
let
time.
me-
And let's
okay.
finish, and after that I want to freight you a beer.
Okay,
and
you
we'll
want
play the
examples? You want
Yeah.
examples?
They
Literally
weren't
every.
in front of anyone.
Okay. You want examples? Literally every single gun control law that you know exists because black people tried to
It
organize
has
with
nothing to do with
firearms in the
nothing to do
60s.
with that. Nothing
And
to do
right
with
now
that.
it's being levied against.
What
the
are you
white man.
talking about? It has nothing to do with it. Michael Reinhold was executed by
What does
federal
that have to
marshals.
do
The
with
president
judge
bragged
being
about
biased?
it.
What does that have to do with the judge being biased? Make that connection for me. Make that connection how that incident, which is very unfortunate and horrible, how does that actually have anything to do whatsoever with this judge being biased? Instead, without having to draw some sort of like weird straw between, this sort of systemic oppression that your people experience with this boy being on trial and the judge being to please make some sort of argument that doesn't have anything to do with a bunch of social justice bullshit that is not invalid.
You're asking
completely
me.
irrelevant.
Then why did you call it bullshit if it's not invalid?
Why are you asking me
There
to
are parts of it
demonstrate
that are
what?
good. I am
You're
charitable about social
you're literally asking me
This
to
is
demonstrate how this individual
You
is
haven't brought up
subject to
one
culture.
talking point that has anything to do with any specific charge of judicial bias other than some sort of systemic problem.
Okay,
that,
dude.
That's just nebulous and obfuscates the point.
Okay,
You're
dude.
not
Just
arguing
like
for
no
anything.
one has ever. If no, you have to say the N word to be racist. If you never say the N word, then there's no possible way you could be racist, right?
Is
That's as
Bruce
silly as a
Schroeder more
fucking
biased
thing.
than any other judge that presides over any other court? Can we?
All right.
That's
actually
not the
wrap it up
question.
Like that?
Yes, it is.
Sorry, I have to
It
cut
actually
this.
is.
Is there a judge?
Okay. I have to cut this exchange. Sorry, but I want to freight to Birbash. He has been waiting for a long time. Yeah, Birbash, go ahead.
Is
I
this
hope
mic
that
working?
it's working right now.
Hey,
So-
there he goes.
Oh, it works.
Yeah, can you guys hear me this time?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're good, brother.
I don't know what the fuck was going on with my microphone. That was some.
Well, don't
that
talk
was some
about it. We
weird
don't want to hear
bullshit.
about it. Let's hear your thoughts.
So, yeah. So, does Wisconsin allow random business owners to like randomly conscript random jerk offs from out of state, regardless of their age, to go LARP as cops?
Doesn't matter. That's not Kyle's fault.
Yes,
That's
it
the
fucking
business owner's
does.
fault. That's the
Because if
business.
these LARP
How is
Yeah.
that relevant to Kyle? That's the business owner's fault.
It's relevant to both of them because it's a significant part of this case. Kyle was there to LARP as a fucking police officer. Kyle was there to
did he
LARP
try
as
to
a
arrest
fucking
anyone?
police officer. Also, when we're talking about all right, so about trying to arrest somebody, if we're talking about whether or not the judge is actually fucking biased or not, I would begin to argue that yes, because the judges worked to suppress some of the fucking FBI aerial surveillance drone on I believe that was the footage that he was starting to fucking jerk off about the whole like
The pickles.
the
pickles, bro.
the pixels that like zooming in could then alter the image because that fucking footage can be used to argue that Kyle was acting menacingly in a manner that would cause people in the crowd that charged him to believe he was a threat and attempt to disarm him.
And another
And the
thing,
judge
there was a
seemed
20.
Sorry, go ahead, Josie.
Beer. No, I just want to add this point. There's a 29 second video that wasn't allowed to be admitted as evidence of him 15 days before at a CVS telling a friend, saying, man, if I had a rifle, I'd be shooting those fuckers.
Cam is gonna pretend like it wasn't him, though.
again,
Cam's gonna pretend like it wasn't him, though.
So, Beer, go ahead.
Again, I don't care.
Beer.
Like, is there any
Beer,
evidence?
go ahead.
all right.
No, sorry, Beer. Go ahead.
He's gonna pretend like it wasn't him.
Yeah, tonight was the first time I've ever heard of anybody use the like Robert Kelly, not the man in the literal fucking
The Shaggy defense, dude. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, but
I want to frame
again,
back.
does that show
Sorry.
these videos tonight.
I want to frame back to Dario, who raised his hand a while ago.
Yeah, what's really frustrating to me about this conversation is that I actually felt like we were going somewhere, and then somehow, like, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we've just been circling into, like, very basic surface level memes, like going back and forth that you can read on Twitter, right? And I thought we had a more meaningful conversation before. I think it's very important when we have these kinds of conversation to stick to the very obvious things we should all agree with that are just like dumb talking points. I'm sorry, Beer, I'm gonna call you a little bit out on this one, right? In terms of like the pixels and stuff, I would say, like, as a software engineer, right, like talking about pixels and how zooming works is actually more complicated than people think, right? And there's some good arguments to be made in terms of like you need something like an expert witness on the case, on the stand, to explain why some sorts of zooming are different than other kinds of zooming, and like, do you actually get evidence that you want from this thing? And it's a more complicated question than like most laymen like just
The defense literally said he creates reality when you pinch zoom.
Well, you do. Well, you kind of
the AI
do.
fills things in, right?
I love
Like,
the
has
AI.
anybody seen this
Kind of
video?
do.
Like, have we all
Right.
watched this video that we're talking about right now?
Cam,
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
It was,
Just a
I
moment.
geeked.
Right.
It was hilarious.
Just a moment, right? When you do zoom in, right, in almost all the ways that you zoom in, you do kind of create reality, right? Not necessarily, right? Because that's a stupid way to frame it, but you do create pixels, you fill in things, and based on how you view it, right, that is altering the footage, right? And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you can get more information that you wouldn't necessarily have that, but that needs to be subject to the other kinds of scrutiny that other kinds of evidence have, right?
I will say that's not necessarily a evidence of the bias of the judge's part, but that's definitely evidence of the defense taking advantage of the lack of technical knowledge of the judge.
I don't think so.
because
Have you seen
anybody that argues that is not
It's not
arguing that
exactly-
honestly.
No, you can
Anyone
make
that
this
argues that
argument
is
about a
not arguing that
documentary.
honestly.
I agree, but that is the prosecutor's job to have a witness there, because they had a ton of other evidence, video evidence that they submitted, right? But they didn't prepare this well enough, right? And that just goes back to the prosecutors
I'll meet you
messing
there.
up in this
I'll meet you
case.
there, friend. I'll see you that. That's true.
If you watch this video, you can't even like tell where Kyle is necessarily until he's circled. It's literally just like blurs of light, and you can vaguely see something across his chest. And the prosecution is essentially claiming that Kyle is holding the gun left-handed with his arm cocked in his head, and then they claim you can see his support hand holding the rifle, right? But if you actually watch the video and you play it back, it's kind of weird because his support hand is already at the scene before he even comes into the frame. So it's very obvious that he's not pointing a gun at anybody in that video. There's no evidence all night of him pointing a gun at anybody. Like, it literally, like, I will send everybody in here a link that breaks down this whole thing. You can literally see the artifact that they claim is Kyle's support hand pointing. And first of all, the direction that the gun is pointed in, that the prosecution is claiming, is like straight up in the air. or at like kind of like this kind of angle up in there.
I'm
It's
just
not
glad
pointing
that
at anybody.
nobody in here was arguing
it's-
that he was pointing a gun at people.
And also, you can see him all night holding the gun right-handed, and then all of a sudden he suddenly decided that he was left-handed. I don't buy it.
Cam, so the issue here, Cam, is, and just for the record, right? I actually agree with what you said. Like, I've seen the same footage. I agree, right? But the issue is that that's a very surface level argument that, as Endless said, like nobody was necessarily making that argument here, right? So instead of having a dialogue about sort of the important issues, it sort of feels just like signaling in terms of like, see, I know this, like evidence that nobody really brought up in this case, right?
Yeah.
It
Well, I
doesn't
was
really
only
further the conversation.
Bias comes in.
I was
the
just
bias,
talking about it because somebody else had brought it up. I don't know. Somebody said that it wasn't admitted or something, but it was admitted. And this also wasn't
they
FBI
watched
footage,
it.
by the way. This was a drone footage, or was it a drone? I can't remember. It wasn't FBI. They showed the whole FBI footage, and it completely contradicted what the prosecution claimed that it showed.
What I said was admitted was the zoomed in image. That was the issue, right? It wasn't
The
admitted
zoomed in image
previously
on
enough.
the iPad.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
That
Yeah.
wasn't admitted
And see,
through the
and here's
proper
the
channels.
thing with that is it's okay to like zoom in, zoom out, but one of the problems with it is, I mean, at first I thought it was hilarious because I'm like, my first thought as the defense just thought about some shit about like the Apple's magical AI powers. And because of the pinch and zoom that all the crazy kids can do, they just like got the old man to agree. Okay. But there are actually problems with it. Like you can't reproduce the pinching of an iPad, right? And if he's convicted of something and he appeals, then I mean that's going to be called into question. If there's no reproducibility,
Yeah, there's a bunch of issues. There's a bunch of issues, and
Yeah.
as a software engineer, right? Like this is something that we learn about, like how do these different processes work? And what I think is just important to just recognize sort of the facts, right? If you don't recognize the facts of the case, you seem biased, right? Not the judge, but you seem biased in sort of your interpretation, right? And
No.
we can still. No.
So okay. So if I could bring it back, the bias is from start to finish, right? The entire system, the whole system, like holistically. The police let him be there in the first place. He shouldn't have been there. We were talking about the judge, since we want to be satisfied with that. Let's talk about Centoya Brown, right? Who killed her rapist, right? And still went to prison. So where a normal judge would just be like, oh, you killed 3 people. Okay, go. Or you killed 2 people and severely injured a third, go directly to jail. But because we have this fantasy, this idea to where you can be a 17-year-old kid and go out to a riot and kill someone in self-defense, and that's cool as long as you're white. You know what I mean? Then
He's not even white.
It has
He's
nothing to do with it.
Hispanic.
And the police let
you really think that
everybody out there
negates
be there
whiteness?
Pretty white,
indiscriminately.
dude. He's pretty white.
Are you really negating whiteness because of Hispanic?
I'm
You don't know
saying
the
that if
difference
we're going to
between
keep
whiteness
bringing it up
and
and saying white, it needs to also be pointed out that he identifies as Hispanic. Otherwise, your entire fucking ideology on your side of the fence falls apart because
do you know
that's
there's a
how
difference-
that
CTV.
son of a bitch identifies.
CTV, do you
The
know there's a
issue
difference
here
between
is
whiteness
perception.
and race?
tell me
white.
you don't understand whiteness without telling me you don't understand
See,
whiteness.
no,
Okay.
I know, right?
CTV, the issue.
I mean, he's a white.
without
guy.
mocking-
Let me get this straight. All you're doing is conflating the term
I love
whiteness
it.
to include some type of cultural element instead of the racial element. Is that exactly what I'm hearing right now?
Some critically
instead of
thinking
mocking-
veteran.
Do read a
Instead of
history
mocking
book.
these
veteran.
things, I just
Dude,
wanna
y'all
make a
need to
point real
quit
quick.
conflating the
He's
fucking
culturally
shit,
white, too.
right? As soon as you start doing that, then you have to start getting to real conversations about what words fucking mean and how you're fucking using them,
about
and then you
CTV?
end up with me sitting right here
Read-
going off on a fucking rant. Nobody else can say a
CTV.
fucking thing. Why? Because
Read
I'm the
CTV.
fucking co-host, and I'm trying to sit here and
see what you're
understand what the fuck you're saying. And this is
Read-
exactly what it's like on Hippy Dippy. So I hope you're fucking ready to be able to identify the
R.I.P.
problems in the
headphone
users. Okay,
conversation and be able.
COVID has
talk
not
about
diminished.
that.
Okay, everyone, stop. Okay, I'm going to give it. We're almost at the end of the topic, so I'm going to give it one last chance to get back on track, and after that, like I think we go into closing statement. Higby, go.
Okay,
Damn, you
so
killed
I guess can we just like put this in just like I realize I'm not really concerned with saying anything right now. I'm more so just getting the conversation back on topic. How does everybody feel about the victims versus rioter thing? Because that was brought up in a couple people's opening statements. I'd like to talk about it. Does anybody have opinions on it so we can get this back on track? Because I mean,
They're
that's one of the
victims.
things that people are claiming
They're
is
dead.
like, okay, the whole
Nah,
point
legal
of the trial
terminology,
is to
don't
find
care.
out if they're victims or not.
So I have an opinion.
Well, you're trying to determine motive. You're
Yeah.
trying to determine motive.
No, we're
and
trying to find out if they're victims of a murder or not. That's the whole point of the trial. And using the term victim implies that a crime was committed.
If Rittenhouse
Well, you have to
wasn't there,
establish
those
a motive.
people
Standard
wouldn't be
procedure
dead.
for this
Cam, so
judge. He
Cam,
doesn't-
Well, you
If
have to
those people
establish a
wasn't
motive.
there, they
Cam.
wouldn't be fucking dead.
Well,
So like,
Cam, so
keep
Let-
saying the
I'll see
same
what Dario
shit.
says.
Cam,
Okay.
the issue here is there's an issue between what this judge does and what is done in general, right? So the issue, so there's two issues, right? If people want to say, well, this contributes to bias in this specific case, right? I believe that there is testimony from other lawyers where this judge has held to this, like even before
every
this case,
case,
right?
right.
Yeah, he's held to this for like the longest time.
Yeah,
But
it's not uncommon across the country either.
exactly.
Yeah.
But here's
It
the
is
other
in
thing,
Maryland.
right? There are other judges in like different areas as well who are saying this is not a normal thing that generally judges do, right? Maybe some might have these quirks, right, but others might. And I think there's a legitimate conversation to if these kinds of ways that we use language, and there's a bunch of studies that go into this, right, if these influence the jury and if there should be more neutral language or more specific language and how these things work, right? So there's an argument in terms of does this influence this case specifically, or does this make the judge biased in this case specifically? And I would say not necessarily, right? Because this is something this judge has done for many cases, right? But you could say, well, should this kind of thing be allowed in general?
Yeah. I would actually argue that using their names rather than calling them victims actually might be better for the prosecution than the defense, because names have been used they were marching around after this happened. Say his name, Anthony Huber, I would argue that their names are stronger than just the term victims. So I don't necessarily know that helps the defense in any way, shape, or form, other than not putting that loaded term in the minds of the jury.
This I will completely disregard whether or not this helps one side or the other, but I do think that saying the names, I think in general would lead to less confusion, at least in terms of
True, yeah, right. Because if you use victim over and over again, you're not specifying which person you're talking about, right? I guess it could be.
I feel like it's because victim is a legal term, and we're trying to determine if they actually were victims or not. That's what I got out of it.
That's already been determined. That's why the judge didn't allow the language.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, it hasn't been
They haven't
determined
seen
whether or
to
not they're
have been
victims.
victims.
Thank God.
exactly.
So he was biased. Thank you. He already knew what his decision was
Not
going to be.
bias.
For the
It's
trial.
understanding the fucking law. Just because you don't understand the fucking law and the language that's being used there doesn't mean that you can somehow conflate it here when you have other people in the room that understand the language of fucking law.
Technically, right now, they're
100%
not
conflated
considered
here.
victims because Kyle has the presumption of innocence until he's proven guilty. So technically, as of right now, legally, they're not victims.
So
Also.
here's the problem with this statement:
Dunk on him, beer bash. Dunk on him.
The judge also allowed the prosecution to refer them to them as rioters and arsonists.
Is that inaccurate?
If they could prove
It
that
by
they
default.
were rioters and arsonists, if
Yeah,
they
it
could
by
prove
default.
it,
Yeah,
that's
it
the
by
point.
default implies.
That's
it
the
by
point,
default-
Michael Jordan, trying to dunk on the righties because they haven't proved it, therefore they can't use that language. That's
No,
fair.
that's not true.
Yes,
no,
it
it's
is.
not.
They have
Because
proof-
if
That's
somebody
his
is
ruling.
murdered,
Yeah, but
if somebody is murdered, they're not.
Damn,
You
I
can't
thought
say,
I'll
"Oh, they're
leave
not a
you.
victim" until we have a guilty verdict. Come on.
Yeah, but
Like, that's
dissident.
silly.
Look,
If
hold on.
somebody's murdered, they're a victim.
It's important.
I mean,
It's important.
Josie, which is
Hold on, dissident,
Wait,
dissident,
wait, wait.
right? Look,
Yeah,
you
You
say
can also
Michael.
say that somebody
Jesus Christ, dissident, right? You say Michael Jordan, but it's more like Muggsy Bogues,
maybe
bro, because
that-
he didn't even get off the ground, right?
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about the
Already
fact that we're
talking
literally talking about bias and application of law, and just like I was talking about earlier with Centoya Bound, we could talk about legally what people are allowed to do or whatever, but people are not treated that way individually. That's what I thought you were going to do. I thought I was alley-ooping you for that, but I had to snatch the rebound on there, I guess.
You gotta do
Can I
that
ask Josie a
sometimes.
quick question? Can I ask
Yes.
Josie a quick question? I just want to know. So in terms of like that argument for like whether or not they're victims, right? Because they got shot. Would you? I'm just asking a hypothetical, right? So let's say hypothetically, like, let's say Hitler was like in the line of fire, and the authorities, whatever, stormed Hitler's bunker and they shot him, right? Would you say Hitler in that case was a victim? Because if you would, I mean, that's being consistent, right? Like somebody got shot, they're a victim, right? But I don't think we've generally used that language, right? In terms of like who is a victim and who isn't.
I generally don't compare
Does that make
protesters to
sense?
Hitler, but I guess we're at that point in the conversation.
Oh my god, bro, it was a hypothetical.
No, I'm not.
Like, come
It
on.
was
I hate-
is a
I hate
hypothetical
Hitler
removed from the
hypotheticals in
situation,
general.
right? I'm not
There's
saying actually-
like I'm
well,
not
actually,
calling
trying to
soldiers on the
demonstrate
battlefield. Like if you really want to talk about soldiers on a battlefield, you know, somebody as a
Was
veteran
Hitler a
myself,
soldier on the
like
battlefield?
I would not say that either. So I think that Hitler sits at a different position than a protester on a
Was-
freaking street.
Was
Sure.
Hitler
Alright.
a soldier on the
If you
battlefield?
think there's a difference. Well,
don't
if you
think so.
think there's a difference, then that difference is being argued in the court, right? You're arguing the nuance of who are they as people.
An
what happened in
American
this situation.
civilian was killed due to the gun violence that happened to that person. Regardless if they were antagonized or not, they are a victim of that person dying. That they died, right? Because they were at a protest. They weren't expecting
so-
to die that day.
Our school
Okay,
shooters that
they
get shot
weren't.
by
They weren't
police.
going in.
Sure, if there's a mass shooter
No, that's
who
not
goes
the
on a
same
shooting spree who's a civilian.
You're
Well,
trying
I
to say that
understand it's not
everybody-
the same
So
thing.
so
but
are
we're-
so is Kyle Rittenhouse killing mass shooters
No,
now?
No, not
Because
at
there's
all.
a completely
Not at all.
different context,
But
right?
You're saying everybody who gets shot is a victim. Like,
No,
No,
what I'm
I'm
saying
not
is
saying
no,
that.
Josie, I'm agreeing
I'm
with
saying
you.
people who got murdered.
Josie, I'm
Okay,
trying
go
to agree
ahead.
with you, right? What I'm agreeing with is I'm saying I agree context matters and the situation matters, right? That's why we can't just say somebody who got shot was a victim, right?
I
That's
didn't say that. I
There's nothing
said
wrong
that
with the
people who are
philosophy.
murdered.
Sure, that sounded like what you were saying, but I
Sure.
real quick, if
But they
somebody
are a
raped my
victim,
daughter
they
and I
died
shoot them,
from that.
is that person that raped my daughter? I don't have a daughter, but hypothetically, let's say I do. If somebody rapes my daughter and I go and I shoot him in the face with a
Vigilante
12-gauge shotgun,
justice?
is he a victim?
Yes, they're a
Okay,
victim to your
okay.
vigilante justice.
Okay, you're
yes.
consistent. Thank you.
You get away with it. if you
Also,
were-
is vigilante
Okay,
shit
okay,
legal
okay,
in the
okay.
United States?
And with that being said,
I wasn't saying a position.
That's
on
still
that.
he's
Wait,
a
wait,
victim
wait,
of your
wait.
crime
I'm
of
sorry, but,
vigilante
like,
justice.
I'm sorry, but with
I
that
agree.
being said, like we're running out of time. If we want to do the last topic, like we're already like way above time because we started late. So yeah, we're gonna have to do into closing statement. Try to make them short, please, like as short as possible. And we're going to start right now with Josie.
Okay. All right. So I'll just start with CTV. Look up pan-European expansionism in regards to whiteness. That is where whiteness comes from. It comes beyond the identities of like Slavs and Goths and Visigoths and Romans and all of that type of stuff. There's an actual
Nordic people.
There's an actual theory.
Basically, anybody who ain't black.
Yeah, right. The pan-expansionism, right, of European. That was in the like 1600s is usually where it starts, and that's where the definitional idea of where whiteness comes from. So it goes beyond just race on that type of point. So it's like you have to understand like there is a level of like privilege that certain people have in passing as white people, for example, and that is put into the system because it's like the shades of darkness, right? So going back to that. Now, going back to the original conversation about the judge's bias, I still stand behind the fact that there were certain things that the judge did do that are bias. I believe the way that he said that the prosecution has to speak, the way that evidence wasn't being admitted, even though that evidence is relevant to the actual case. I think those things are very clear. However, I do see it as a somewhat of a distraction because we're not going to win on the argument as is the judge bias. We have to win on the argument that why was Rittenhouse there? Was there an intent to try to cause defense, to live and play out that cosplay fantasy of doing the defender thing, of being called by a private owner to go in and be there? And honestly, Cam, if that's true that the residents or the business said come and do this, then that person, that business owner should also be guilty of manslaughter as well, because they put a child, an actual minor, in the line of fire for something that could have happened. And everybody knows that a minor isn't probably the best militia person that you want to bring to the group. And with, as the video says, of how he separated from the crowd, he made some massive mistakes that a 17-year-old would do. Okay. So I think that there is another case to be had there. But because of that, I do believe that Kyle was a person that was coaxed to go and do this, and then was lived out and cosplayed that fantasy, and now is having to deal with those consequences. And I hope that it is several years behind bars to understand that you can't go and live out your cosplay fantasies that actually kill people. So that's my point. I really appreciate that we had a conversation about this. And when we get to the nuanced discussions, let's just remember that we are trying to elevate the conversation and actually talk about just the fact, more than just the fact, but the implications of what these things bring. And honestly, when I think of like the final piece on this, I don't want 17-year-old kids running around with AR-15s going into protests saying, oh, I'm here to defend myself. That should not be immortalized. That should not be seen. And I've seen a lot of people call Kyle Rittenhouse a hero, acting perfectly, responsible, all of that stuff. That's very dangerous to the young kids that hear that type of language and be like, I want to be a hero too. I want to be seen as perfect and responsible with the gun owners. I want to be somebody that defends public property because that's what patriotism looks in that way, which is obscured and obscure and wrong. And nobody should be promoting this. And we should be going like, we shouldn't let kids do this. That's what the country should be saying right now. But instead, there is an entire side that is saying this person's a hero, and that is what scares me. So that's my closing.
All right, Cam Higby.
Sorry, my mic wasn't unmuting. Okay, so yeah, I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. I think that there's a certain level of courage it takes to go into a dangerous place and try to render medical aid, but I don't think that makes him a hero, not any more than any other, first responder. Certainly don't think he's a hero, and I would agree with Josie that I think that it is kind of dangerous to promote him as a hero to like young people who might be like on the, sidelines watching this whole thing go down. I also wanted to clarify that the question I last asked Josie about, the hypothetical with the rape and the vigilantism, I agree with her on that. I also think that person would be a victim, and I think that vigilante justice is bad. I was just looking for consistency there. Really, like, I guess this kind of boils down to like, there's a whole nother conversation to be had about like the systemic implications of this country or whatever, or how the system treats people that look certain ways or whatever. That's like a whole other conversation. I think really, and I don't know if it was specifically outlined in this, like the premise for this discussion, but I think really what we wanted to find out here, because this is what the media is trying to push, is whether or not Bruce Schroeder is more biased than other judges. Not biased because of the system or anything like that, but more biased than other judges. And I don't think that it was Kyle's cosplay fantasy that killed people. I think the reason that people died is because they assaulted Kyle and placed him in a position where he had to defend himself. I don't think that him being there is the reason that people died. I think the reason that people died is because they placed themselves in a situation where Kyle had no other option but to defend himself. So that's my, I guess, closer. On to the next person.
All right, Dario.
Yeah, so to some degree, I agree with a lot of people on this panel on some arguments and not on others. I think it's important when we talk in these forums, when we talk to each other, it's important to gather information and see where we have agreements, where we have disagreements, right? And I think that the best thing we can do in terms of like inspire good change in our communities is to take the information we have from these panels and call out the worst aspects of our own sides, like of people that agree with us, right? Saying that you don't think it's good that, like, as a conservative or whatever, saying that he shouldn't be lauded as a hero, right? And if you then go take that and go to your side and say, listen, guys, I understand you might think he was justified or whatever, but he wasn't a hero. I think that's good. I think that's going to bring people more towards reasonable conversations. And I think the reasonable conversations in this topic in general actually aren't as much about Kyle specifically and the judge specifically and all these are individual conversations, and those aren't ultimately going to lead us many good places, right? Because I might think personally, and I actually do, right? I do think that Kyle acted in self-defense given the circumstances, right? But I don't think that's an interesting conversation. I think the interesting conversation is about what are the systemic things that led to him being there in the first place? What are the systemic things that led to the rioters being there in the first place, right? Why are they rioting or doing an uprising or demonstrating or whatever you want to call it, right? Let's address those issues to make sure that people don't have to do those things, to make sure that they're trying to be heard, right? What is the state doing wrong? What is the system doing wrong to wrong these people, both Kyle and them, to make sure that they find themselves in a situation like that? And I think calling for bias from the judges or calling from bias from the legal system or this and that, that's only going to lead to more division, because ultimately that isn't something we're going to agree with the other side. And at that point, it's only a show of power, right? Who has the most power in terms of trumping what they want? And I think it's more prudent to talk about where we do agree and address the worst parts of our own side in that agreement to sort of bring it closer to reasonable conversation. There you go.
All right. Montreal player.
Okay, yeah, we took the scenic route to is the judge biased. Takeaways: COVID has not diminished CTV's lung capacity. It's all lies, people. It's all lies. Kyle is fucking white. Okay, all right? Don't say anything differently. That motherfucker's white. Okay, ugh, how can you? Anyways, whatever. All right, and the last thing is, I think Hitler would be found innocent of murdering those people, storming his bunker, but he would have been found guilty for war crimes and mass murdering people. Unfortunately, unfortunately, he would have been found innocent. Oh man, that came out wrong. Whee! All right. Yeah, yikes as fuck. Okay. Yeah, eyeballs. That's it. That's my only statement. It's very interesting, actually, listening to you all and making commentary on my own stream here.
All right. Endless Cemetery.
So, I actually agree with Cam Higby. The liberal question is the judge more biased than other judges? And like, obviously no, but that's not the meat of the matter, in my opinion, right? It's like asking, should we bomb this country as opposed to this country? Maybe let's don't bomb any countries at all, right? If you're asking about the system, right, and is the system biased, I could give you examples at every level, whether we're talking about just basic gun control and would this person be allowed in public with a gun versus this person? Mulford Act, right? Gun control exists because of that, right? We're talking about individuals. Would a judge treat this person differently as opposed to this person? Centoya Brown, we have that example, right? Would the police treat this person differently as opposed to this person? Philando Castile, Tamir Rice. The examples go on, right? Keith Davis Jr., free Keith Davis Jr., right? Like, so if the question is the judge more biased than other judges, the answer is no, obviously. But if the question is the judge biased, then the answer is clearly yes. And I feel like that's the more compelling question, and that's the question that should be asked, and the answers to that question are the answers that should be being sought. Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 people and administered first aid to precisely 0 people. It's absolutely astounding to me that we consider, like I said, the 17-year-old going to an active zone like that with an AR-15 to be perfectly normal. To say that they were there for any reason other than Jacob Blake being shot while he was unarmed by police and being paralyzed from the waist down, and the social outrage that occurred in the aftermath of that, is intellectually dishonest. That's why those people were there, right? You can call them rioters or looters or what have you, okay? And that gets into what Martin Luther King said about the language of the unheard and the form of the riot. But with that, I cede.
All right. Dissident Tower.
Well, I think we've established that the judge is not any more biased than any other judge. right? I mean, that seems to pretty much be the consensus here, and that's pretty much the right way to look at it, because there really isn't a credible critique of the judge being at all biased. If we want to talk about systemic issues, right, systemic inequities in the system and how justice is applied, then cool, right on. I mean, that's a good conversation to have. But as far as does that point to judicial bias that's in favor of this young white kid who shot 3 white guys in a predominantly white area while the ashes are still falling on the ground, right? And maybe people wouldn't have died if he wasn't there. Maybe. Okay, that's cool. I mean, we can talk about that too, but I'm really not hearing any other kind of cogent arguments about his bias. Now, one thing that kind of sticks out to me is I'm not entirely closed off to leftists making good points, but Josie actually makes a very fine point that really resonates the most with me, and in this case, this is a fucking child, right? This is a fucking child that's up there that this shot 2 people. He shot and killed 2 people, and then he had another person that almost got his arm blown off, right? And we're bitching and moaning because he didn't stop and provide first aid. Instead, in a shock response, he got off and he started talking he went and called a friend. Oh my God, I just killed somebody, right? And we're sending him to the fucking chair for that. Shame on you, goddamn gargoyles! I swear to God. Nothing about this makes me other than mad. I don't give a shit about the judge being biased or anything like that. The fact that this child was put in this position in the first place is absolutely inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. Yeah, he can legally buy a gun. That's cool. Right on. Anybody can buy guns. But what he doesn't have is anything resembling some sort of guidance. Right, he has no guidance. He just got a gun and went ahead and went off with his little friends and did his thing. And his friend group is all into the guns. And yeah, man, that's how I be a man.
Based.
Everybody here seen a Christmas Story?
Based.
Has anybody here seen A Christmas Story? You ever see that? Right? Yeah. I see you. You get it.
Hell yeah.
That's right. So did you say? Okay, I looked at Kyle's social media quite a bit. I mean, my job isn't. I investigate and I educate. That's what I do. I looked at his social media quite a bit. Did you see pictures of him with that rifle?
I just wanted to throw out really quick because you were spitting right there.
Wait. No, sorry. We're doing closing statement. We don't have time.
We can talk later, man.
Don't send him to jail. Don't send him to jail. That's all I have to say. Don't send him to jail. Abolition.
Dissident?
No, okay. The kid, like watch A Christmas Story if you haven't seen it, and it's just the beaming face of that kid once he gets the rifle. What is it? I fucking wrote it down and now it's gone. The Red Ryder, right? He wanted that Red Ryder rifle and he got that thing and that was his whole fucking life. He was on his way to being a fucking man. Is he a man? You look at that fucking child up on the goddamn stand. Tell me he's a man. Really? I mean, seriously. I mean, that's really what the real problem here is. It has nothing to do with systemic racism. It has nothing to do with judicial bias and all the rest of this fucking noise. It has nothing to do with that. It's a child who is now traumatized by what he has done, and he did do it. I mean, he did shoot those people, right? But he's traumatized for this, and he'll be traumatized for life, and chased by political partisan fucking ghouls for the rest of his goddamn days. Watch if I'm wrong. Okay, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
All right. I'm going to fade to Biabash.
Still muted, bro.
Sorry, I was pulling up Discord to make sure that it would actually work. I don't really know what I would add that's any different than what Endless Cemetery and Josie were saying. But we were talking about stuff like how this kid is being put in this situation. This is like a serious also cultural indictment of it's well known that this kid was and this the way this kid's mom raised him. He was raised in this fucking atmosphere that grossly glorified police and what they do versus the actual realities of how scummy and corrupt they are. And basically created this mentality that he would go be this hero if he went out to go answer this fucking random Joe Jerkoff business owner's call to essentially try to build his own private army of oinkers, since they, I guess, viewed the real oinkers as not doing their jobs well enough or some shit, which I find fucking ridiculous. But yeah, so, but just because that doesn't necessarily mean that Kyle didn't do that. Kyle is somehow now like another victim in all this just because he answered the Oinkers call, because that was that answered the Joe Jerkoff's call to then go be one of these fucking pig larpers, because that was still a conscious decision on his part. What's that?
Sorry, I pressed the button at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were asking. Never mind. But yeah, in terms of, it's a little sad to me that this conversation got so off the rails, because there are definite like actual ways that we can connect the issue of how. The question here wasn't whether or not the question we were asked to answer for the panel wasn't necessarily whether or not the judge was more or less biased than other judges. It was whether or not the judge is biased. And the point that a lot of the points that were made were that the judge wasn't necessarily more or less biased than other judges, just this judge has displayed bias so far, and this bias is generally in line with the institutional bias towards people who are acting in a manner that is attempting to uphold the current system and the current hierarchies.
All right.
That's all, really.
And last but not least, the ghost of CTV, who is not here. Oh, never mind.
Rip.
You're muted. Such a good intro.
Yeah, still muted.
Still muted.
Still muted.
Yeah, not sure what's going on here, but we can't hear you, Mr. Veteran.
Dude, I was so anticipating it, and then it was just like nothing.
I was waiting on the edge of my seat.
Still
Just
muted.
pausing for effect.
Now,
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
Yeah, we got it.
now, you've all said some very good, bad, charismatic things. So I wanted to make sure that we covered the facts as quickly as possible, as to value everyone's time. So bear with me. Kyle Rittenhouse was from the very community that he went to go defend, right? The very fact that he was in the situation defending his community because, right, of the just complete shitstorm that had been brewing for the last fucking year, right? And then the catalyst of George Floyd, there was an incident happening in his community, all this shit kicked it off. This 17-year-old kid is now like, what in the ever-loving fuck is going on here in my town, right? This ain't some kid that's probably been all over the fucking world, right? They have a very small world view, right? And for those of us that have been around the world, seen a few things, it's a whole lot easier for us to be able to identify with people from all over the different parts of the world because we've actually been fucking places. This kid has a very small world view. He sees things are happening. He, in the interview beforehand, had expressed how he was there with a med kit, and if he needed to be able to defend himself or to defend others from others that potentially could have, and there was reasonable belief that there could be bad actors there at the event, got put into the situation. Had to defend himself because Rosenbaum, who was looking for a fucking fight that night, if there was an individual there that was looking for a fight that night, it was that fucking pedophile. Okay? So, after that event gets kicked off, It was the media and the entire shitstorm that we were talking about beforehand that was in people's minds that had the second and third events. I think that back when I was growing up, if that shit would have happened, somebody just got shot, they're running away, they're screaming, I'm going towards the police. Hey, cops, right there, buddy. Right? I ain't trying to get that fucking involved. I'm keeping my distance. Ain't no reason why I can't do that. Why do I got to be the motherfucker to go try to do something there? If he's not pointing the weapon at someone, I don't have a fucking problem with that person. As soon as they raise that thing, that's when I got a big fucking problem. It goes 0 to 100 fucking immediately. I felt like that the discipline that he showed that night with that rifle was exceedingly responsible. I don't feel like he needs to be glorified for it at all, but he is an example of responsible marksmanship. So, dissident is right. I don't envy that kid in the life he's got ahead of him, because people are going to make it hell for him, and all he was really trying to do was defend himself at the end of all of it.
He's going to get elected.
But yeah, with that, I wanted to thank you all for being here, first of all. I really appreciate that. First of all, did I forget anyone for closing statement? I feel like I did. Perfect. All right. I wanted to thank everyone for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Geek. Thank you.
And yeah, I didn't check the time. So right now we're 3 hours in. We still got like the fun topic to cover, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So basically, like, if you have to go or
Let's run
anything,
it. I'm good.
Lightning round.
Wait. So basically, if you have to go, I understand. Just shout yourself out, like
Anybody gotta go anywhere? Let's make it quick. Anybody gotta go anywhere?
Let's do it.
Raise your hand if you gotta go.
Let's do
All right,
it.
we're still going, Geek.
No
All
big or
right,
go
you
home.
wasted 5 fucking minutes with that. Jesus
All
Christ.
right,
Geek.
all right.
Let's get it going.
Back.
Okay, perfect. And
Damn, it better be a good topic now.
Yeah, and
Right?
endless. You gotta
Right?
warn a girl when you're doing like that close up. Like I got a little, you got me a little too warm on that. Like,
My bad.
I do
all
what I
right.
do. I do what I do.
Yeah, Zoom doesn't give you the full picture, remember?
Bro,
Yeah, my
not
3D
zooming.
printers. My 3D printers are very nice. You know what I mean?
All right, let's go for the last and third topic, which is a fun one. Is cutting spaghetti in half unethical? And what other crimes against pasta do people often commit? All right.
can you repeat that one more time, Mr. Geek? I'm
Is
sorry.
cutting spaghetti in half unethical? And what other crimes against pasta do people often commit?
Are you talking about breaking pasta in half and then throw it in the? Okay, so you're saying, so is that a crime to do that? And what other pasta crimes are there?
Yeah.
Okay, I have some.
All right. Well, in that case, you start.
Okay, fine. Yes, you shouldn't break your spaghetti. Okay. What else do you have? The twirl. All right. But there is a crime against pasta you can't do. You cannot mix pastas. So you can't give like spaghetti and like penne, put that together. Okay. That is a crime against humanity and should never be allowed. Should be only one pasta. You choose it and you put a sauce that works with it. So that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
All right. Montreal player.
No mixing pasta. Have you ever been poor? No. I've mixed pasta many times, mainly because I don't want to throw out the pasta. All right. And there's other boxes of pasta that I also don't want to throw out because I want to eat that stuff. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do with like the bottom of the pasta? You're supposed to throw it out? Like we live in a world with like such food abundance, which we kind of do, right? But you live in a household with such food abundance that you're just throwing out pasta willy-nilly in the trash. Jeez. All right. Second thing, cutting pasta in half is something that's done for children. If you do it to someone else's pasta, especially without their consent, you're infantilizing them, okay? And that's wrong, All right, you shouldn't do that to people. All right. Now, if they have their consent, they're into being infantilized. I guess that's a different thing. Okay, but doing it without their consent, okay, I think there's something seriously wrong with you. You're trying to do something psychologically. You're trying to do psychological abuse on people. All right, if you cut their pasta in half without their consent, psychological abuse. That's you. You're an abuser. All right. And if you throw out the bottom of the pasta, then the bottom of the box of the pasta, because you refuse to mix it, you're an elitist. All right, there you go. There's my statement. Wait, hold on. Maybe I should have my own opinion on this. Hold on. Instead of criticizing other people's opinions.
If recycling,
it's fine. It's fine.
If recycling the water is against the law, then I'm a felon. So there you go.
Put them in cuffs. Put 'em in cuffs.
If you want.
Yeah, you went next, so jump in there.
Yeah, we're doing opening statement on this topic if you want to go.
Oh,
ahead.
endless. Oh, shit,
sorry.
you were ready. Oh, fuck. You see how that happens? You see how that happens, endless? And you even had the floor. We was all waiting on you to say something fucking brilliant because you was all sitting there ready to go. Oh, my goodness.
He was just following the CTV. He's just learning from the great CTV, you know.
And he should have took the cue and picked it up and ran with it, right? That would have been a CTV thing.
If he did that, he would have said nothing and then was on mute for 5 seconds before
Take
he was heard.
you got to take the pasta water, you recycle it, but you don't just use it to make more pasta with it.
Was already hot. Thank you very much. His would have had to been too because he interrupted. You see? That's why it's open to statements. Quit trying to even think you can crush my logic, Josie. Just sit there and look pretty. Right?
You just interrupted his statement.
And I'm running the show. Okay? There you go.
All right, let's go. Uninterrupted this time.
That's all I got for you. Put used pasta water in your bongs and dab rigs. There you go.
I was actually waiting, Geek, for you to actually call it back out to him. Because, see, you had the ball right then. I had picked the ball up, passed it to Geek, right? So you should have been holding on to the ball that he don't speak until. See the behold? See how it works?
Listen, there's a reason why I'm behind the computer and not like on a feel like playing sport or some shit.
All right, well,
Anyway.
this is on-the-job training, right? Here we go.
All right, Dario, go ahead.
Damn, it's just really curious to me how the leftist on the panel is against pasta mixing. It's really curious. I wouldn't
Very
have
curious.
Sounds racially motivated.
Exactly. I just gotta listen. As a leftist, okay, as a left-wing individual, I mix everything, right? I mix the pasta, I mix the people. It gets more beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Diversity is our biggest strength. In pasta,
the pasta question.
People, the
Spoken
pasta
like
question.
a Canadian.
Exactly. Yep, that was my statement.
All right, Beer Bash.
Still muted.
I don't know if it is.
I wasn't even saying anything because I'm genuinely just this one just stumps me. Like, the question was like, if I'm understanding the question right, it was like, is it a crime to break the pasta in half before you boil it, right?
Yep.
I don't see why it would be. I mean, you're going to have pastas that are like more cooked on one end and less cooked on the other if you can't get the whole pastas submerged right away because they're too long and got to wait for one end to fucking soften up so that you can like cram the fucking other end in. And then those pastas, that end of the pasta is going to be still raw while the other end of the spaghetti is going to be like all fucking flaccid and fucking floppy and shit. And then if you're trying, it's gonna be like whenever, and it's gonna be inconsistent through the pasta. It's gonna be like soft as shit on one end and al dente on the other.
Damn, I think Beer Bash is a biased judge in this case.
I probably am. I don't know. I don't really cook spaghetti that much. That this is something that's never really.
He doesn't even know his
come to mind for me.
There you go. He doesn't even know his spaghetti. Disqualified.
Nice.
Yeah. Obviously, you just
mistrial.
Fix that problem with the spoon. You just stir.
I want to pray
Pasta,
to.
salt.
I want to pray to Higby.
Yeah, so I definitely don't think that it's a crime to break your pasta before you put it in the pot. But something that I used to do when I was a kid, so I ran track. So if we're going on like a 2-hour track trip, I'd bring a box of spaghetti pasta with me, and I would eat it dry on the bus. No joke. I'd just sit there and munch on spaghetti. But yeah, I can't think of any. I guess one thing I've learned today is that I'm a pasta criminal. So
I've literally munched on. I've taken the
sorry,
like,
we're sharing
shitty
opening,
little-
but yeah, this
Oh,
is
it's on my bad. Go ahead. Never mind. Never mind.
Oh, is it me? I'm sorry.
yeah.
These
I'm
tweets
done.
stop
I'm done.
with the seriousness it deserves.
Yeah, it's a crime. You're and also you are infantilizing people who could very well just like cut those things with a knife, right? You want to cut your pasta in half, goddamn it, you get a knife or something like that and then cut it in half. It's not that hard. The rest of us like it really long, right? And that's just
Thank you,
the way it
dissident.
goes.
And al
It's
dente.
true.
Thank
It's
you.
true.
Al
You should
dente
add just
is the way to
a
go.
little bit of oil to keep
Yes.
everything loose. A little bit of salt in the water, not on the fucking pasta.
You want it al dente
That's
to
a
keep
crime.
the
That's a crime
nutrients.
against God, and I won't tolerate it.
All right.
That is the entirety of my opening statement. My strong pasta opinions.
CTV.
Got a few things to say about this, and I hope you're ready. Right? First thing, if any of you motherfuckers ever walk into my house and question any cooking gets put in front of you and you disrespect the wolf of corn, you're going to find me all over your fucking ass, right? Because rest assured, if I go over to your house, there's no questions. It's thank you, right? My ass is hungry, right? I'm giving you some food. Thank you is the only exchange, right? That is socially fucking acceptable, right? So,
Accurate.
from there, right? The only way we can have this conversation is in a fucking restaurant, right? Because that's where you could actually judge the cooking. So, how long are these fucking commercial noodles that we're talking about? Right? We're not talking about your regular household noodles. You don't get to complain about those. So how long are these commercial noodles? You know what? Breaking them some bitches in half might just have to be standard operating procedure. So, you know, if you're taking offense, I'm assuming you're doing all your home cooking, and good on you.
All
Commercial
right.
noodles are too big. Confirmed.
Real quick, did I forget anyone for their opening? No? Perfect, you can engage.
Yeah, I think maybe it might say, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, it might say something about you if you feel the need to cut your noodle size in half, right? Or if you're against it. Sorry, if you're like, no, you would never cut noodle size in half. Right? Maybe you're dealing with short noodles.
Listen. As apparently the only person on this panel who wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, listen. Sometimes, if your pottery is too small because you don't have big enough fucking pots to cook pasta in, because you're not fucking wealthy. Okay,
You know what,
Capitalism, bro. Just get a bigger pot, bro. Just get a bigger pot, bro.
bro.
Just get a bigger pot.
Dude, I can't. Listen, I don't have a bigger pot. I have a small
Let's
pot.
get a bigger one.
Like, how do I fit the noodles inside the fucking pot? Listen, I have to break them.
Just
That's
stop
the
being
only
broke.
way I can literally make the pasta.
Yeah.
Listen, hey, listen, if
feel
you have
like-
an issue with that CBD, that's capitalism. That's
Oh no,
capitalism.
Niggas can't be choosers.
got,
Well,
hold
this
on,
is a
we've
great
got
way
it.
to
We've got a
address
big
that.
fucking issue, but for a whole different fucking reason. I don't even know how you hear somebody with my accent and you somehow associate silver spoon, right? I don't think there's very many
Sound
people
very
like.
sophisticated, CTV.
I'm just telling
What are
you,
you talking
that's
about?
pretty much the truth, though, right?
I mean, I've met plenty of people who speak.
I mean, what
with a
you
very
got? We got
southern drawl
Colonel
who are, like,
Sanders,
upper class.
right?
Like-
How long's it been since there's been a rich white man with this accent? It's been a long fucking time. You know what I mean?
CTV, all I'm
Colonel
saying is,
Sanders is all you got.
CTV, all I'm saying is, if you have big enough pots to cook pasta all in one, you're wealthy. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Funny guys.
My pots aren't big enough. Like, I don't cook spaghetti a lot. I hot take. I only like spaghetti when it's uncooked. But Yeah, like my pot, like I feel like the pots that I cook pasta in, I usually make like Alfredo and stuff. If I were to cook spaghetti noodles, and I think I'd have to break it in half. But why would I buy a pot when I can just break the shit in half and cook it?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. As someone who favorite food is pasta, all you have to do is stir it. It doesn't matter how small your pot is. You just stir the noodles. They go into the water and they all get soft and they're all sitting there.
But if they don't fit in the pot, then you
Just
have
to wait. Wait 10 seconds. If they sit, it's fine.
What a
It's
bourgeois
fine,
thing to say. Imagine the ability to wait 10 seconds.
Yeah, what
in
about
this
people who don't
capitalist
have any
system,
skills?
Listen,
How dare you?
I can't
You
wait.
got
I
me.
can't spend
You
10
got
seconds
me.
cooking pasta. I need to do my labor, okay? That's how it is.
But then in order
working
to get,
class, I
even
don't
if
have
it only
time to make
takes 10
pasta.
seconds, in order to get the most like consistent al dente across that noodle, the side of the noodle that got submerged first is going to be like 5
You're
seconds.
not gonna taste 10 seconds. Beer Bash, you will not taste 10 seconds. I
Hold on.
promise.
Hold on.
But
You're
if 10
telling,
seconds is
if
long
you
enough
hold
to
on,
cook.
stop the fucking show. You're not gonna. You're not gonna taste 10 seconds. So what the fuck have women been complaining about all these fucking years, huh?
Oh, we can feel 10
not
seconds.
tasting it.
Don't get me
No,
wrong.
you ain't gonna taste it.
We
You
can-
ain't gonna taste
yeah,
it.
we
What
can
you
feel
complaining
only 10
about?
seconds.
Right?
If only they could taste it.
10 seconds in the world to some people, okay?
10 seconds.
It's all just a
10
sequence of 10
seconds.
seconds. That's the line you use.
Believe me, women know 10 seconds, okay?
Yeah, you might have missed it. We're talking about taste, right? Right.
Damn, Josie, you ain't have to do them like that.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
But I had to.
It's one of those. You make a complete. You know what? I felt like we were going down the highway, right? We were going down the highway, right? And then out of fucking nowhere, somebody grabs the wheel and they're not even driving, right? How the hell does that happen? Confusing. So
I will say, if you're trying to transition to like a meatless or a reduced meat or a different type of diet, you're altering your diet. Pasta is a really good meal. You
Pasta's
could do all
great.
kind of stuff with.
Yeah.
But the one thing you can't do is cut the spaghetti in half.
No.
Yeah, well,
Unless
unless
it,
you're
you
a
could
monster.
cut it
That's
on your
not
own
vegan,
plate.
or
You
that's
could cut it on your own plate. That's okay. Once it's on your own plate, it's yours. You can
Wait,
do
just
whatever you
hustle,
want.
hustle, mind grind. So if you don't have a big enough pot, just hustle, just Uber or something
hold
until
on.
you
Big
have
you
enough
in
money to
this.
get a big
Oh my
pot.
God, what a
Talking the
let them eat
capitalist
cake
way.
statement there.
But
I
here's
know.
here's the real
Yeah,
question you
Endless
gotta
and I
ask.
are
Okay,
now
Marie
we're
Antoinette.
capitalist pills. We're done. We got it.
Well, here's the real
I
I
get
guess
question.
we went
pot.
from we can't tell people what to do with their money to now saying, well, you have to buy a big enough pot to cook pasta. Okay.
Yeah,
we have-
exactly.
Yeah,
And you know
just
what?
if you don't eat
I'll take a
avocado
step back.
toast.
how it is.
You should
The
buy
U.S.
a
government
spoon.
should issue U.S. government should issue a
State-mandated
big
pasta
enough pot
pots.
for everybody in America. Every American should have a big enough pot to be able to boil pasta full
Goes in
noodles.
2024.
You need
There we
that.
go.
Hold
Yeah.
on. Hold on. Outstanding. I'm glad you all just caught up to me.
Pasta to the people.
I've been sitting where I'm at like fucking no shit a minute and a half ago. So I'm glad you finally got caught up. So here's the real question is what gives the manufacturers the so-called fucking right to decide how long the initial manufacturing of the fucking noodle is that you pull out of the fucking box, right?
What gives the
True.
pot manufacturer the right to decide what pots can fit a standard size pasta?
Listen, we need democratically elected pasta manufacturers. That's what we need. We need democracy to decide how big our pasta needs to be right now.
Publicly
Nationalizing the
owned,
pasta
operated-
They should unionize. They should unionize.
This could
United
actually
pasta.
be a great jumping off point into an actual serious conversation into how like standardized like quality cookware could be like something that would be very beneficial to just give out to the populace for free as part of a social program.
That seems
bro.
Okay,
like a
okay.
I wanna
Real
talk
quick,
about that.
real
I
quick.
wanna talk
I'm
about
sorry,
pasta.
but no. I cannot let that fly. Listen, I'm not supposed to intervene on topics, but two things. One, we're not gonna have a topic about regulation on the size of pasta. I am sorry, but
Why
that's
not?
not happening.
Wait, are
Hey,
you
all I
afraid,
can say
Mr.
You
right
Geek?
made
now-
this happen.
What are you afraid of, Mr. Geek?
All I can say
Okay, you
right
know
now-
what? Next EPDP recruitment, that's going to be the serious topic. 2 hours on this. Are you ready? You better like.
All I can say right now
Ready
is
to break
Orange
the internet.
Man bad.
True.
All I know is all I'm talking about is giving. Everybody's talking about giving pot to people, which is like, okay, let's do this.
Nah, Orange Man. Good.
Legalize
Orange
pot.
Man won.
Just want to argue the size of the pot. That's all, Josie.
Fair.
We always want to talk about size, right? Size is important.
True.
Yeah, so you still didn't answer the question, though, right? And the question is, what gives the manufacturers the right to decide what the initial length is, therefore, at what point it gets broken, right?
And it seems
That's
like it's
the
up to the
question
business, you know?
that cuts right to the root of all of it.
You know, because the working class has always been able to seize the means of pasta production, right? It is not difficult to make pasta.
Wait, CTV.
I've made pasta myself, and I've
It's
made
not
it like
hard. It's not
24 inches.
I could totally 3D
24
print some
inch,
pasta
one
right now.
noodle.
You must
Wait,
have a
wait.
really big pot.
That's a pretty big pasta.
The actual,
Yeah.
the actual question
roll
is,
it.
the actual question is, why is it considered broken when we make it, but not considered broken when the manufacturers put it into the size that it already is when you buy it, right? So is
Very
it
good,
actually
Brother
already
Dario.
broken, and then when
No,
we
they've been
get it,
cut.
we just
Yeah, and I try not to think too much about where my food
been
comes from
saying.
unless I make it from scratch in my kitchen.
Like,
Yeah, I
Dario
don't wanna
just
know.
literally repeated what I said.
yes, but I said it better,
Are we?
CTV. That's why people.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. He
But
did
it's
say it.
cutting, not just.
So let
It's
me get
cutting,
this
not
straight.
just
So
a form of
because you
breaking.
can't understand basic English, right, and you got to put it into this this supposed risen language, right? That while I'm sitting there listening to, it, I go, you said the exact same thing
Listen,
that I said.
CTV, I came to America to take your job. That's just how it is, baby.
See, and that's why
Ooh.
this is exactly why, right?
True.
People think that people that talk like that are pretentious snobs. Right?
And I am.
True, right? See, I try to talk to everybody, right? And why do I want to talk to everybody?
Yet nobody
Because I
understands you.
want. No, everybody understands me.
I understand you, CTV.
There's no doubt that I'm understood. Okay,
I'm from
there's not a
Maryland. I
doubt.
definitely understand you.
So, but see, like
Goddamn
I
Danish invaders.
try to speak to everybody. Everybody, not just some highfalutin, I'm going to try to fake out that I'm more intelligent than I really am type people, right? Everyday fucking people that actually fix shit and do shit.
You have a really
what I'm
nice
saying?
diction, CTV.
Yeah,
Really,
you
really
got,
nice
you
diction.
got me, CTV. You got me.
Got him. Hold on. I got the button for that. Hold on.
You got really nice diction, CTV.
There it is. There it is.
Apparently, I'm now a member of the bourgeois since I can afford long pasta, and
you can
I had
afford
no
to
idea
not
that
mix.
that was.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's the entry to the 1%.
Josie,
Yeah.
Is everybody?
You
honestly,
made it.
it's
You
like-
made it.
it's oppressive to people like me
Is it
1%.
impressive?
with small pots. Yeah.
So are
I'm
we?
not going to make them smaller.
I'm
I'm
okay being a
sorry.
member of the petit bourgeoisie. If the petit bourgeois, if being petit bourgeoisie is just me being able to make pasta like a human, okay. I mean, all of
Yeah.
it. That's fine.
So if we all agree that like the standard size noodle, right, which comes in the fucking box at Walmart or whatever, right?
American.
And then
noodle.
American noodle, there you go, right? And we break that in half, right? Are we saying, right, that that's a crime, yes or no? Raise your hand for yes, don't for no.
Wait, say that again.
Crime.
I missed it.
Right? Okay, if the standard noodles that you get at Walmart, right? They're about yay long, right?
Yeah.
Right? And then
The blue box?
if you think that it's a crime to take those and break them in half, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's not a
Oh, yeah.
crime.
Right, raise your hand.
Froze.
It absolutely is. Yes,
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
that is a crime.
Oh, okay.
Listen, everybody who
I
has
just
their
wanna
hand
know where
raised
we were
right
at,
now,
that's all.
I'm just like, why?
everybody
So right now it's
Except my
4 to
membership.
3. 4 to 3, right? So
Oof.
Oof.
What does
Yeah.
that mean? Does that mean I have to throw out my big pot?
I don't know, but like I watched 12 Angry Men the other day, and I feel like we need to come to some kind of consensus. You know what I'm saying?
You can't
Listen,
call it a
all I'm
crime.
saying is, all I'm
You're
saying
trying to
is,
determine what the meaning of that word is.
You will
I thought it
not
was
make
good.
my
I
pot
like
It was a
big
good
pots.
movie.
You will
I like
not
that movie.
regulate me from having a small pot. It's my right as an American to have a larger pot to cook my pasta, damn it. Not going to listen to your communist ways.
Pot freedom.
legalize pot. Oh wait.
Listen, it seems like no one can come to a compromise. And
This was the spiciest.
There is no
More time.
compromise.
Yeah,
As
there's
a
no-
French-
I will die on this hill.
There is
Listen,
yeah,
listen.
there's
There's no
civil
compromise
war.
with food topics.
I'm
Yeah,
French.
Go
We-
downstairs and cook my pasta. in a
Listen,
pot
French
so big
people
and
don't
break
get a
it.
vote on food, okay, Mr. Geek? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
we invented
Pick him-
food.
pick
Before
him
that,
now.
you
Pick him
guys
now.
were eating rocks. That's all I have to say. So we invented
Your
food.
food
So
sucked.
as the authority on this topic, I'm going to give my take. yes, people need bigger pot because technically, even if it's not a crime, you shouldn't have to break your pasta. You should have a pot that is big enough to fit them. That way, like when you're like cooking them, like when they're like starting to get soft and everything, they can like basically you don't even need to stir it. Like just the movement of the water will do the work for you. That's it. That's the only correct thing.
Thank you.
Listen,
Thank you
Mr.
for
Geek,
coming
if this
to
is
my
what
TED
you
Talk.
if this is what you truly believe, Mr. Geek, I'm gonna need you right now to live your values. Okay, you need to do a fundraiser to make sure everybody in here has a big enough pot for that pasta. That's what you need,
True.
or else you're just being a hypocrite.
Next Sunday will be a charity stream. For bigger
Get
pots.
Dario a
Why
big
don't we
pot.
why don't we pressure Hassan to buy pots of
Exactly.
adequate size for everybody?
Yeah, I'm gonna tweet
That's
that at
right.
Hassan right now. Hassan, you need to buy pot for everybody.
Yeah, Hassan, buy my pot, please.
Yeah, make sure you look and make sure you tag every fucking Twitch politics streamer that you can think of, right? And then have them all wondering what in the fuck you're talking about, and then tell them where you're having the conversation, and then guess what? Maybe more people are
No,
sitting
no, no.
here
Make
being a part
sure
of this fun time.
Communism is free pot
Make
for
it
everybody.
cryptic. Let's go full Hassan. You're a hypocrite if you're not buying pots for people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Communism is when free pot.
True.
Yeah.
Actually, true.
What,
Nah.
you know what? We
Low-key
could say
based.
when the
Low-key
left
based.
and right of Twitch politics united against Hassan.
And socialism is when you touch the pot and you eat the pasta.
That's
don't
real
even
horseshoe
know.
theory.
I don't even know
That's
who Hassan is, but if I'm getting a big pot out of it,
Based.
You're down.
Yeah.
You're down like you're.
that's how
He's down like 4 flat tires for your cousin at a wedding.
Who's
That's
down
how
for communism
plays
if you get a
5D.
bigger pot?
That's how Hassan plays 5D chess, right? He buys one big pot and he
I
says
fucking
it
love
belongs to
UCTV.
everybody.
But yeah, with that being said, I think this was a fun topic to end this really like heavy one. So yeah, thank you everyone. I think it was pretty chill. It was a heavy topic, like that could have gone wrong in many ways. But like, despite going off road a few times, you know, you guys managed to y'all managed to do something great. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for
Thanks
that.
to everyone. It was good talking to all you. Thank you.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very
Anybody?
happy to have talked to Jens tonight.
All right, so we're going to go
Yeah.
with a quick outro on the pasta
Oh, you're a
topic
Yinzer.
and give yourself a shout out. And yeah, we're going to start with Josie.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And good job, all of you, for doing your first debate panel with the Hippy Dippy recruitment here. That's where I started myself. I remember CTV was the person that, and we got real spicy after that. So, no, everyone did a really good job here. I appreciate you all. You can find me on Josie
Loving me
Rose
ever
C. On what was that?
Josie's been
What, say
loving
it.
me ever since.
Oh, always.
I
We have memes. We have memes on our Discord because of you. So no, it's good. It's good. But anyways, you can find me at Josie Rose C, as it says on the screen right here. At Twitch TV. You can also find me on Twitter as well. I don't really do as much on the Bird app, but I am there, so you could always find me there as well. I really appreciate all of you, and yeah, it was a good time. Let's do it again.
Have memes of me in your Discord.
All
The
right.
least you
Yeah,
could
I do have memes of you.
Yeah, it would be the least thing you could do would be to share them in the Infinity Acre Wood with everybody. We all love a
Oh,
good
I
meme.
should.
You should.
Yeah, I'll show. We have Spoon Lady. We have
yeah.
you in the woods. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Mm, mm.
We'll have to share them up. We will.
Yeah, send them over.
Thank you for joining us, Josie. Endless.
I'm sorry. What were we doing again?
Outro statement on the
outros,
pasta and shout out, basically.
Oh,
Tell
right
people
on. Just thanks everyone for the conversation. I appreciate being brought on again. Shout out to Mr. Geek. Shout out to Danabo. Shout out to Comrade Beer Bash, repping the Mid Atlantic. Gotta have solidarity with the Mid Atlantic comrades.
Augers.
And yeah, shout out to Josie as well. Shout out to CTV, always with the making it interesting. It was interesting meeting Dissident Tower Montreal player and Cam Higby and Dario. You got the same name as Dario Argento, so that's cool. Automatically pass the vibe check on that one. You can find me at endlesscemetery.com. I do game streaming and like stuff like 3D printing and just basic nerd stuff, but also lefty black anarchist politics. And I'm also one half the hosts of the Bolsheviks podcast, where you can hear all kinds of interesting tales of proletariat between myself and my other co-hosts. You can find that wherever it is you get your podcasts. And yeah, thanks, y'all.
Thank you for joining us. Dario.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Geek, even though it was a bit of a short notice. I think one thing I think CTV said in the intros that I think people sort of think a lot about these days in Twitch politics is about creating a character or creating entertainment for yourself. I just think that it's equally as important to remember that if you are actually serious about politics and you want to make a change, you should actually try and go above and beyond just participating in panels and making entertainment for people, because we all do love entertainment, but that's not actually what politics is about. Politics is about finding truth and helping people, in my opinion. And I think everybody, especially in these places, especially when you're in a smaller place like this, you can make yourself noticed by going out there into the real world and doing politics, not just on panels like this. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and hopefully I will do more of these in the future.
Hell yeah. Montreal player.
Hello, my name is Montreal Player, twitch.tv/Montreal Player. You can call me Monty. I do politics by building things. I actually have a schedule. So on all school nights, I'm going to stream. Mainly, I'm going to smoke a joint and try to talk to interesting people. So Monday, touring news. Tuesday, the High Times podcast with CTV. And this week, I'm really important. Wednesday, talking to laymen. And Thursday, having community night. Well, we'll talk to the chat. And that's it. Those are the days I do drugs. And on the weekend, I don't do drugs. So, and by drugs, I mean cannabis and Vyvanse. Yeah, that's it. Have a great night.
All right, thank you for joining us. Dissident Tower.
Dissident Tower on Twitter, where I say horrible things, and Tower 16, where on Twitch, where I mostly stream me playing video games while I read and listen to various other horrible things and talk to interesting people about them. I really like being on the panel today. It was really great to be back and chat about this. It's actually a pretty serious issue that brings up some very interesting implications. So it was nice to talk to all of you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Biabash.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me on. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Cool. So I'm Beer Bash Johnson. Thank you very much, Mr. Geek and Danabo and CTV for having me on your show. It's been really great talking with all. It's been really great talking with all yins. I am actually pleasantly surprised with the serious topic did go a little bit off the rails, as I expected. It didn't go quite as off the rails as I honestly thought it would. And so that is leaving me rather pleasantly surprised. But anyways, I'm Beer Bash Johnson. I do politics yapping, auto racing simulators. Right after we're done doing this, I'm playing some Escape from Tarkov with a friend of mine, probably. And I do some other things on the channel as well. The primary goal in my channel is we have fun while also getting into the serious stuff. And thanks again for having me on. I hope you all have a wonderful night and a wonderful week.
Hell yeah. Cam Higby.
I'm Cam Higby. I guess the channels I'm trying to grow my Twitch right now, so this is the place that I'm probably going to be the most. I'm also on TikTok, but I'm struggling there because it's been banned like a million times. But pretty much if you search my name on any platform, I'll come up. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on the stream tonight. I enjoyed talking with everybody, even the pasta oppressors that went from policing how I spend my money to policing how I break my pasta. It was really fun. I enjoyed both the not so or the fun topics and the serious topics. Yeah, it was good. You could, I guess, if you come on my stream, I'm either going to be talking about like really serious political stuff, or I'm going to be playing Snake on Cool Math Games. I don't know. I've watched every day of the trial except 8 and 9 with my stream, so I guess that's kind of the stuff we do there. So that's what I'm going to be prioritizing. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And by the way, everyone, feel free to drop the link to your stuff in my chat, like whatever you want to promote. Yeah, feel free to do it. Real quick, besides CTV, did I forget anyone? No one? Then in that case, I'm going to throw it to the man, the myth, the legend, CTV.
Mr. Geek, I appreciate it. And appreciate everybody's outros on the topic. I said everything I needed to say about it earlier. The only thing that was said on the outros that really kind of spoke to me was from Dario, right? So I guess maybe now would probably be a good time to kind of point out the responsibility that, you know, Dylan, myself, Geek, Danabo, right, and everybody that bothers to show up to these panels, right, the responsibility that we take on for trying to help get the word out into the spaces outside of our Twitch politics community in order to get more people to pay attention to what we are doing here, right? This is exactly why there needs to be conversations about characters and people that want to build a brand and a character for a specific brand if that's what they're doing. Because see, this is where people, like anybody that bothers and comes to my stream, knows exactly what it is that I'm doing, why I do the things I do, and they know a lot of the reactions that I end up having because they've been sitting here watching me for a while. Typically what ends up happening on panels is people interrupt, so then it gets to be that shout, 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 and then next thing you know, right, you either get shut down or you fight your way back out of it. This has been my experience for the last year. This is just the nature of panels. So that's why we say the word character, because I really kind of have a hard time associating the types of one-on-one conversations that I have with people where there's no need to try to fight to get your way in there versus how it's perceived on a panel, right? So why would you not have a panel persona, right? So participating in politics and putting your views out there and helping to build the Twitch politics community that has been, I would say, good to all of us, right? Is exactly what we as a community need to be doing, right? And it's a pretty big responsibility that we, as you know, especially me and Dylan and Geek and Danabo, right? It's been like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, if you will, pushing this thing for the last year, right? Is that fair to say, Geek? You know, so you know that's where I'm at with it, and that's why I continue.
Weren't the horsemen apocalyptic?
Just saying.
Was
right?
it the end goal of the horsemen was to destroy all of humanity in the world?
No, it's
That is
clearly
the
to build.
end
That
goal of
sounds pretty
CTV,
basic,
isn't it?
though.
Anyway,
I know it does sound pretty based. I love you
Dethrone
guys.
God.
I'm just fucking with you, CTV. I love
Yeah,
you.
I'm
Yeah,
okay
and
with that.
there's a lot of people that owe them having any kind of audience at all simply to the fact of, like Josie said, right? If it hadn't been me and Geek and Danabo and Dylan all putting the work in here, none of that would have came out. There's been a whole lot of that a lot of people owe thanks, and from time to time they actually come do, you know? So the only real question at the end of all of this is why are women?
True.
True.
This is the first and the last question that humanity will ask. But yeah. One more time, thank you everyone for joining us. I really enjoyed hosting tonight. So yeah, thank you for making this a chill and really cool panel. Just by curiosity, real quick, Josie, what are you eating? I say.
Oh, I am eating these really awesome potatoes with a like cashew cream sauce. It's so good. Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
I was curious about that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
thank you everyone for being here tonight. I'm going to say goodbye to my chat, and have a lovely night and
Have a great night.
Likewise,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.